Chapter 38:38. Taoist Flamewing's eyes slowly narrowed, and he gazed coldly at Zhuowen. Junior, I'll give you a chance. Withdraw your bid right now, and perhaps you'll still have a chance to live. Zhuowen didn't even look at the flaming sage. Instead, he looked at Yusha on the central platform and said indifferently, Miss Yusha, this old man is openly threatening me. Is your auction house not going to do anything about it? As soon as he said this, many of the surrounding cultivators looked at Zhuowen with pity. Even Yusha's gaze towards Zhuowen had become somewhat strange. However, Yusha, who was a professional, still gave her answer. Esteemed guest, you are free to bid in our heavenly auction house. As long as you are determined to obtain this item, we will not restrict you from bidding, and you can rest assured that fighting is not allowed in the heavenly auction house. Esteemed guest, you can rest assured, Yusha said with a professional smile. Zhuowen sneered inwardly. He could tell what Yusha was planning with a single glance. She was clearly trying to provoke him to continue bidding. As long as the price was raised, the heavenly auction house would profit. As for Yusha's words about not fighting in the heavenly auction house, would he stay in the heavenly auction house forever? He had offended the flaming sage. As soon as he left the heavenly auction house, the latter probably wouldn't care about his life or death, and would let the flaming sage do whatever he wanted to him. I believe in your heavenly auction house. Zhuowen nodded seriously. Then he pointed at the flaming sage's box and said, arrogantly, Dog Taoist, are you threatening me? You're still too inexperienced. If you have the ability, come and bid with me. Don't be a stupid pig, and try to threaten me with force. As soon as he said this, the surrounding cultivators were stunned. F***CK. This rogue cultivator was pushing his luck. Did he really think that the heavenly auction house would protect him just because of a few words from Yusha? Many of the powerhouses in the box shook their heads with cold smiles. They could easily guess that this unbridled rogue cultivator would have a very miserable ending. Adept Flamewing almost flew into a rage, but he didn't immediately act out. He wasn't a newborn calf, and was very clear about the rules of the World Auction House. In addition to the background of the World Auction House, he didn't dare to cause a ruckus during the auction. However, after the auction was over, the flaming Taoist had made up his mind to make that arrogant ant die a horrible death. 4,000,000. Taoist Flamewing coldly quoted a new price. He was still unwilling to give up on the map just like that, so he immediately raised the price by another 1,000,000. In his opinion, a mere itinerant cultivator would definitely not be able to take out so many chaos gems in such a short time. Unfortunately, as soon as Venerable Flamewing announced his bid, Zhuowen, who was sitting in the ordinary seats, slowly said, 4,001,000,000. Bang! The Flamewing Taoist clenched his right hand and slammed it on the table in front of him. He stared at Zhuowen as if he wanted to eat Zhuowen whole. The powerhouses in the other boxes also took a second look at Zhuowen. For a mere rogue cultivator to be able to quote a price of 4,001,000,000, he must be really rich. This was very rare among rogue cultivators. Sikong Chiyu stood in the box with his hands behind his back. His gaze also fell on Zhuowen, and his brows slowly furrowed. He had never seen this rogue cultivator, who had challenged the flaming Taoist before, but he felt a sense of familiarity. Aunt, I'll let you have the map. I'd like to see how long you can keep it. The flaming Taoist's suppressed anger filled the auction house. After he finished speaking, he didn't say anything else. Everyone was discussing spiritedly. They all knew that the flaming Taoist had given up on bidding. At the same time, they all cast looks of pity and sympathy at Zhuowen. In their eyes, the flaming Taoist's words were a death sentence for this person. Yu Sha revealed a brilliant and charming smile. She took a second look at Zhuowen and continued, "Is there anyone else who wants to bid a higher price? This map is very useful. It's a complete map of the Hex Realm. If you're passing by, don't miss it." Zhuowen's expression was a bit ugly. Yu Sha still wasn't satisfied at this time. The price of 4.01 million had far exceeded the value of the map. If he hadn't emptied the Nangong family's treasury, as well as the spirit rings of the cultivators he had killed over the years, he really wouldn't have been able to take out so many chaos crystals at once. After waiting for a long time and confirming that no one else was bidding, Yu Sha slammed the hammer in disappointment. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist, for obtaining the map of the Hex Realm." The moment the hammer fell, Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. He knew that the map was now his. Yu Sha continued to auction off the next item, while the geographical map was placed on a tray by a tall and burly man who walked towards Zhuowen's seat. "Fellow Taoist, the total is 4.01 million chaos crystals." The burly man arrived in front of Zhuowen and held the tray with an expressionless face. 4.01 million? Isn't it 4.01 million? Zhuowen asked strangely. "The rules of the Heavenly Auction House are that we charge a service fee of 10%. Your auction item is 4.01 million, so the service fee is 400,000. Fellow Taoist, don't worry. After receiving the service fee, the Heavenly Auction House will do our best to ensure your safety in the auction house," the burly man said calmly. Zhuowen pondered for a moment before handing over 4.01 million chaos crystals to the burly man. Since this was the rule of the Heavenly Auction House, he couldn't violate it. The burly man counted the chaos crystals in the spirit ring. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he handed the map to Zhuowen and left his seat. Zhuowen silently stored the map in his great world. There were too many people here, so it wasn't appropriate to check the map here. Zhuowen's original plan was to leave immediately after obtaining the map. However, after knowing that a Stage 4 astral weapon fragment would appear in this auction, Zhuowen decided to stay. He wanted to see what a Stage 4 astral weapon fragment looked like. The auction proceeded in an orderly manner. Precious auction items were displayed one after another, and they all attracted the bidding of the cultivators. Moreover, the auction items displayed later became more and more precious. Even Zhuowen couldn't help but be tempted. However, as the bidding continued, the prices of these auction items were raised to an extremely high level. In the end, Zhuowen still didn't compete with the others. Meanwhile, the powerhouses in the private rooms also started to join in the bidding as the auction items became more and more precious. The people in these private rooms were basically the upper echelons of the major forces in the central state. Needless to say, their wealth naturally went without saying. When the bidding started, it was extremely crazy. Even Zhuowen was dumbfounded when he saw their bidding. Next, the auction item is the finale item of this auction. I think everyone has already guessed. Yes, it's a Stage 4 astral weapon. Chapter 38-39. Amidst the endless clamor, another crystal table rose from the center of the auction hall. On the table, there was a transparent, airtight cover. The cover glowed brightly and radiated with extremely powerful restriction waves. Inside the cover lay a palm-sized bronze mirror. This bronze mirror was not complete. From its outline, it could be seen that this bronze mirror was damaged. Moreover, the damage was very severe. However, Zhuowen's gaze turned serious the moment he saw this bronze mirror fragment. He could sense that the aura emitted by this bronze mirror was extremely unusual. It could even be said that it was extremely powerful. It was far more terrifying than the rank 3 astral weapon fragment, the purple gold toad, that he had. Is this a rank 4 astral weapon? Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly as his heart burned with passion. Previously, when he used the purple gold toad, he was able to kill a 5 elements transformation powerhouse at the peak of the Heaven Ascension transformation stage. If he could obtain this rank 4 astral weapon and merge it with the purple gold toad, wouldn't he have the ability to kill an yin-yang transformation powerhouse? At this moment, Zhuowen was thinking about how to obtain this bronze mirror fragment. However, the moment Yusha announced the starting price, Zhuowen immediately revealed a bitter smile. This is the highlight of this auction. The 3 Fire True Mirror is a genuine rank 4 astral weapon. It is said that the 3 Fire True Mirror can release 3 types of powerful flames, each more powerful than the last. Although the 3 Fire True Mirror is badly damaged, it can still release a type of flame that is extremely powerful. It is said that it can instantly burn a yin-yang transformation powerhouse to death. Yusha smiled sweetly as she listened to the heavy breathing below the stage. She continued, "The starting price of the 3 Fire True Mirror is 10 million chaos crystals. Each increment must be no less than 100,000. Starting now." Just as Yusha announced the starting price, the cultivators in the ordinary seats below the stage all sucked in a breath of cold air. 10 million chaos crystals? What kind of joke was this? Even if they sold themselves, they wouldn't be able to take out that many chaos crystals. Zhuowen was also shocked. He didn't expect the starting price of the 3 Fire True Mirror to be 10 million chaos crystals. Although he could take out that many chaos gems, that was only the starting price. Many of the people participating in this auction were the upper echelons of the major forces in the central state. Their wealth was so great that Zhuowen couldn't compare to them. He knew very well that there would be a fierce bidding war. The silence in the hall didn't last long. Finally, someone from the box, high above, made a bid. 11 million. 13 million. 15 million. The price of the 3 Fire True Mirror continued to rise, and the rogue cultivators in the ordinary seats could only watch helplessly, unable to get a word in edgewise. "Grand Elder, we can start bidding now." Inside Sikong Chi-Yu's box, the 2 elders following behind Sikong Chi, Yu saw that the former didn't bid for a long time and were somewhat anxious. Sikong Chi-Yu was calm and composed as she said coolly, "So anxious for what?" The appearance of a rank 4 astral weapon has alarmed all the powers in the central state. Those few veteran forces are probably here too. They haven't even started bidding yet. We don't need to be in such a hurry to bid. The 2 elders came back to their senses and nodded repeatedly. Their gazes, when looking at Sikong Chi, Yu became even more reverent. Their relationship was indeed messed up just now. The price of the 3 Fire True Mirror still rose methodically. Very soon, the price reached the level of 20 million. This was already a very terrifying price. However, Zhuowen discovered that not only did the sounds of bidding not decrease, but there were even more. 30 million chaos gems. This 3 Fire True Mirror, my Crimson Summit, Holy Hall wants it. Above, an extremely domineering voice came from a box, increasing the price by 10 million all at once. The originally fiery bidding immediately stopped for a moment, and after a moment of silence, it was a violent clamor. "It's actually the Crimson Summit Holy Hall. This is a super major force whose strength and foundation aren't inferior to the Flood Martial Divine Sect." Even the Crimson Summit Holy Hall came. Doesn't that mean that the Flood Martial Divine Sect and 8 Gods Zhan Sect also came? Zhuowen sat silently in his seat. From the surrounding discussions, he also knew that the Crimson Summit Holy Hall, 8 Gods Zhan Sect, and Flood Martial Divine Sect were the 3 strongest sects in the central state. These three sects had deep foundations, vast territories, and many experts. They were the true super major forces. Zhuowen's spiritual force had already swept through all the boxes. He could confirm that the Flood Martial Divine sect definitely came. Apart from that, he also discovered that the other two boxes also sent God domain transformation experts. One of the boxes was this voice that claimed to be from the Crimson Summit Holy Hall, and in the other box there was still no movement. But he knew that the people in this box should be from the Eight Gods Zhan sect. Brother Gongya's appetite is a little big. This rank 4-star weapon goes to the highest bidder. Even if you increase the price by 10 million, it can't be said that this rank 4-star weapon is really sold to you. Sikong Chiu finally spoke. His voice was very soft, but it filled the entire venue. Everyone heard it clearly. It's the great elder of the Flood Martial Divine sect, Sikong Chiu. The Flood Martial Divine sect's people are indeed here. This will be a good show to watch. What I'm curious about is whether the Eight Gods Zhan sect's people are here too. If they are here, then the three strongest sects in the Central State will be gathered together today. That would truly be a fierce battle between two giants. Everyone was discussing animatedly. Their eyes were filled with excitement and strangeness. In the Crimson Summit Holy Hall's box, a middle-aged man with a cold expression slowly narrowed his eyes to a dangerous angle. The middle-aged man wasn't tall. He was thin and small, but he had a head of strange red hair. From afar, it looked like a burning flame. It was extremely extraordinary. He was the great guardian of the Crimson Summit Holy Hall, second only to the Hall Master, Gongya Bolong. Great guardian. It seems that the Flood Martial Divine sect's people are also involved. I'm afraid that this rank 4-star weapon won't be that easy to obtain. Beside Gongya Bolong, one of his subordinates spoke in a low voice with an ugly expression. Gongya Bolong sneered and said, "I've already thought of this point. That's why I applied for the right to use so many chaos crystals before we set off. I don't know how long it has been since a rank 4-star weapon appeared in the Central State. Even our Crimson Summit, Holy Hall, only has one rank 4-star weapon. This kind of thing is too powerful. It's enough to allow a sect to gain a foothold in the Central State and strengthen the sect's foundation and power. If I'm not wrong, the Eight Gods Zhan sect should be here too." Chapter 3840. Sikong Chiu wasn't in a hurry. She pondered for a moment and raised the price to 35 million. 45 million. Gongya Bolong added another 10 million without any hesitation. At this moment, other than Gongya Bolong's and Sikong Chiu's private rooms that were still bidding, the other private rooms had all quieted down and were silent. These two people were extremely powerful. Moreover, with the price reaching this level, it was already difficult for them to bid. Therefore, they rationally gave up. 50 million. Suddenly, another room made a bid. The voice was a pleasant female voice. Gongya Bolong and Sikong Chiu both paused for a moment, then looked towards that private room. They were very familiar with this clear and pleasant female voice. "Ha! I didn't expect Junior Sister Yun to come too. What a coincidence! The Flood Martial Divine sect, Eight Gods Zhan sect, and Crimson Peak Sacred Hall are all here." Gongya Bolong said coldly. Everyone recognized the owner of this female voice. It was the Eight Gods Zhan sect's vice sect master, Yun Kanglin. She was a very capable and powerful female cultivator. Yes, Senior Brother Gongya, Senior Brother Sikong, Junior Sister Yun is just a weak woman. I hope the two of you can take pity on her. Don't compete with me, okay? Yun Kanglin's voice became soft and boneless. It was bone-numbing. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would immediately fall to the ground after hearing this voice. They would decisively agree to the owner of this voice. Unfortunately, Gongye Bolong and Sikong Chiyu weren't ordinary people. They were expressionless and didn't speak any more nonsense. Instead, they continued to bid, indicating their attitude. When the price rose to 60 million, the entire venue was silent. Zhuowen was secretly speechless. He couldn't help but admire the wealth of these 3 sections 60 million chaos gems. Even with his many years of accumulation, he couldn't take out 60 million chaos gems. 80 million chaos gems. Gongye Belong's voice was cold as he shouted an extremely high price. Sikong Chiyu and Yun Kanglin immediately fell silent. However, this silence didn't last long. Sikong Chiyu raised the price to 90 million. Yun Kanglin was even more ruthless. She directly bid 100 million chaos gems. This was already an extremely terrifying price. 100 million chaos crystals. Even super forces like the Scarlet Summit Temple, 8 Gods Zhanzong, and Hong Martial Divine Sect would suffer a loss if they were to take out so many chaos crystals at once. That bitch Yun Kanglin, how dare she bid such a high price? Gongye Bolong stood in the private room with an ugly expression. Even though he had made sufficient preparations, he still could not take out that many chaos crystal stones. That was 100 million chaos gems. It was a price he had never thought of. Sikong Chiyu's brows furrowed slightly. His hands behind his back were placed in front of him and tightly crossed together. Grand Elder, we don't have that many chaos crystals at the moment. The 2 elders standing behind Sikong Chiyu were pale as they hurriedly spoke. How could Sikong Chiyu not know that the number of primal chaos crystals he had brought this time was only about 97 million? He really couldn't compete with the price Yun Kanglin had quoted. It seems that this rank 4 astral weapon in the auction is destined to have no fate with me. Sikong Chiyu relaxed his hands and sat down, no longer continuing to bid. Grand Elder, that may not be the case. Lord Sect Master has already prepared the second plan. This plan is to prevent such a thing from happening. A thin and tall elder came up and said. Sikong Chiyu's eyes flickered, revealing a trace of disgust. He said indifferently, Sect Master has already told me about the second plan. If that time really comes, then we will implement the second plan. When the 2 elders saw Sikong Chiyu agree, they both revealed looks of wild elation. On the central platform, the smile on Yusha's face was exceptionally brilliant. Before the auction house had already estimated that if this 3-fire true mirror could be auctioned for more than 60 million, it would already be a sky-high price. But now, the price had actually reached the level of 100 million. It had to be said that this was a pleasant surprise. This is a rank 4 astral weapon. This is extremely rare in the Central Continent. If you miss this opportunity, you won't have this opportunity again. Does anyone still want to continue bidding? Yusha raised her voice, but she couldn't conceal the excitement in her voice. She was still urging others to continue bidding. A pair of watery eyes stared closely at Sikong Chiyu and Gongye Belong's box. But what made her disappointed was that these 2 boxes had sunk into a long silence, without a single word being spoken. If no one bids, then this 3-fire true mirror will belong to the esteemed guest in the Skybox 3. Congratulations to this esteemed guest for successfully obtaining this unique rank 4 astral weapon. Yusha heavily slammed the auction mallet. Inside the Skybox 3, Yun Kanglin's fair face revealed a trace of a victor's smile. Yun Kanglin was a classical beauty. She was dressed in silk and satin, giving off an aloof feeling like a celestial maiden descending to the mortal world. Senior Yun, this 3-fire true mirror is a rank 4 astral weapon after all. Although we have successfully obtained it, I'm afraid that many people will be eyeing it covetously. Behind Yun Kanglin stood a young maid who reminded her rather worriedly. Yun Kanglin's gaze was calm as she said, "Don't worry, Sect Master has already made arrangements for this matter. She will personally come to receive me. Even if Sikong Chiyu and Gongye Bolong join forces, they might not be able to keep me from receiving Sect Master personally." The young maid nodded. With Sect Master personally making a move, this three-fire true mirror would truly be foolproof. Not long after Yun Kanglin finished speaking, there was a knock on the box door. The maid opened the door. Outside the door was a man completely wrapped in black cloth. He held a tray with both hands, and on the tray was the three-fire true mirror. "Esteemed guest, this is the three-fire true mirror. I wonder if you have prepared 100 million chaos crystals." The man asked calmly. Yun Kanglin's divine sense landed on the three-fire true mirror and carefully examined it. After discovering that there was nothing wrong with it, she took out a spirit ring and threw it to the man. There are exactly 100 million chaos crystals inside. You can count them yourself. Yun Kanglin said indifferently. The man took the spirit ring, scanned it with his divine sense, and nodded with satisfaction. Then he handed the tray to Yun Kanglin. "Esteemed guest, this three-fire true mirror is of great importance. It's best if you don't leave through the front door. That would be too conspicuous. Our World Auction House has a secret passage that leads directly to a mountain range thousands of miles away. If esteemed guest is willing, we can arrange for you to enter that secret passage." After the man put away the spirit ring, he looked at Yun Kanglin and said. Yun Kanglin thought for a moment and nodded. "Since your World Auction House has a secret passage, then I will follow you into the secret passage and leave this place first." Although Yun Kanglin knew that the sect master of the Eight Gods Zhan sect would personally receive her, the location of the reception was not near the World Auction House. Chapter 38:41. Zhuowen frowned. With a sweep of his divine sense, he found an underground secret passage in the box Yun Kanglin was in. Then Yun Kanglin and her maid were led into the depths of the secret passage by the man from the World Auction House. In addition, Zhuowen also discovered that the same secret passageway had appeared in the other private rooms. Apart from Yun Kanglin, the other cultivators in the boxes did not seem to find this strange. They were not in a hurry to enter the secret passage. Instead, after Yun Kanglin had entered the secret passage for some time, they entered the secret passage one after another. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He understood the details in his heart and secretly shook his head. He did not have a good impression of the World Auction House at all. Just as Zhuowen's divine sense was paying attention to the movements of the cultivators in the boxes above, a tyrannical divine sense landed on Zhuowen without any concealment. Moreover, this divine sense landed on Zhuowen in a very domineering manner. A terrifying pressure was released as if it was targeting Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. He recognized the owner of this divine sense. Wasn't it Reverend Flaming Flame? Previously at the auction, he and Reverend Flaming Flame had bid for the geographical map of the Hushu domain. In the end, Reverend Flaming Flame had lost the bid and publicly threatened him. Now that the auction was over, this old man could not hold back anymore. Killing intent rose in Zhuowen's heart, but his face was extremely pale and his body was trembling. He then stood up and hurriedly left the World Auction House. Zhuowen's actions naturally fell into the eyes of the many rogue cultivators in the ordinary seats. They could not help but shake their heads. They knew that this person had been completely targeted by Reverend Flaming Flame and would not live for long. "Reverend, don't you plan to snatch the three-fire true mirror? You've paid a hefty price to get this spot." In the box where Reverend Flaming Flame was his subordinate saw him stand up and was about to leave the box and could not help but ask, "Humph, it won't be too late to come back after I get rid of this ant. You should know that there are too many experts here this time. The chances of me getting the 3-fire true mirror are not high. Why don't I use this time to snatch the map of the Hushu domain? That thing is more useful to me now." Reverend Flaming Flame said as he walked out of the box and out of the World Auction House. His subordinate followed closely behind. After Zhuowen walked out of the World Auction House, Reverend Flaming Flame had left the box and directly chased after him. Yu Yang's place, Reverend Flaming Flame, was immediately. There was no one. It was a good place. Want to escape? It's not that. Seeing Zhuo Wen's fleeing figure, Adept Flamewing sneered and chased after him. Reverend Flaming Flames, Flaming Flame, S Flaming Flame, Flaming Flame, and his Lord Flaming Lord's Flame, Flaming Flame, God's Flaming, run. Used to escape's T2 Reverend Flamewing's voice was filled with arrogance and brutality as he slowly walked toward Zhuowen. His face was filled with complacency, as if this person was already a turtle in a jar. Escape? Do you think I need to run when dealing with trash like you? Zhuowen shook his head and took out his half-moon god spear. Then, with a stomp of his right foot, he charged toward Flamewing. Good, you got guts. You clearly know that this seat's strength is stronger than yours, yet you still dare to provoke me. Today, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Adept Flamewing was furious. Zhuowen's answer had left him in a bad mood, and the consequences would be severe. Streams of true fire erupted from Reverend Flamewing's body, transforming into lifelike fire dragons that instantly surrounded Zhuowen. You're just a mere void god transformation stage cultivator. You're nothing in front of me. Reverend Flamewing sneered. It had to be said that Adept Flamewing's cultivation was indeed quite good. He was roughly at the early yin-yang transformation stage, which was 2 major realms higher than Zhuowen's. However, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. After he had advanced to the empty god rank, 9 empty gods had been born. Back then, he had killed a 5 elements transformation stage expert with a single punch. In his opinion, he didn't need to borrow the power of an astral weapon to reach the yin-yang transformation stage. However, Zhuowen did not immediately reveal his full strength. Instead, he summoned a void god with his half-moon god spear and barely managed to block the surrounding fire dragons. He was waiting for Reverend Flamewing to reveal an opening. As expected, the disdain in Reverend Flamewing's eyes deepened when he saw that Zhuowen was barely resisting. An ant will always be an ant. If this seat wasn't in a hurry, I'd slowly torture you to death. You're quite lucky, so I'll give you a quick death. With that, Reverend Flamewing took a step forward and entered the domain of fire dragons. Then, he clenched his right hand into a fist and casually punched toward Zhuowen's chest. In his opinion, Zhuowen was barely able to resist the surrounding fire dragons. There was simply no way he could resist his fist. In Reverend Flamewing's view, Zhuowen's death was certain. But soon his expression changed. The moment he punched out, he saw a mocking smile appear on Zhuowen's face. Then he saw Zhuowen, who had been running for his life, escape the fire dragon's encirclement nimbly like a fish and easily dodge Reverend Flamewing's fist. Under Reverend Flamewing's astonished gaze, Zhuowen summoned 9 void gods in an instant. His aura skyrocketed by hundreds and thousands of times. The 9 virtual gods sat in rows in the surroundings, suppressing all the fire dragons in the surroundings. Zhuowen's aura skyrocketed to the extreme. In that instant, he attacked. The moment Reverend Flamewing's fist punched out, Zhuowen saw that Reverend Flamewing's attack was full of openings. Die! Zhuowen's fist smashed into Reverend Flamewing's forehead. Vast amounts of grand mist god force poured into Reverend Flamewing's head, and then exploded. Reverend Flamewing didn't even have time to scream before his head exploded, and his soul was completely annihilated. Zhuowen very deftly put away Reverend Flamewing's spirit ring. The exchange between Zhuowen and Reverend Flamewing was too short. It was over in the blink of an eye. The servant, who had been watching the battle from outside the valley, didn't even have time to react before he saw Zhuowen kill Reverend Flamewing. This can't be? Reverend Flamewing, he's dead? The servant's face was full of fear. Then he realized the danger he was in and fled out of the valley without a second thought. How could Zhuowen give him the chance? He threw the divine half-moon spear in his hand. The half-moon god fire spear spewed out a terrifying flame. It flashed through the air and turned into a long streak of flame. Finally, it pierced through the servant's back and nailed him to the rock wall. The servant screamed as the divine fire of the divine half-moon spear ignited him and burned him to ashes. Zhuowen put away the divine half-moon spear and sighed inwardly. Chapter 3842. It seems that my current strength is only slightly stronger than an early-stage yin-yang transformation expert. Zhuowen glanced at the corpse of Reverend Flaming Flame, lying on the ground in the valley. He shot out a stream of divine fire and burned the corpse to ashes. Although he had almost instantly killed Reverend Flaming Flame, all of this was based on the fact that Reverend Flaming Flame had underestimated him. After all, Reverend Flaming Flame had regarded him as an early-stage void god transformation ant. Otherwise, Zhuowen would not have been able to pick up such a big bargain. If Reverend Flaming Flame had fought Zhuowen fair and square, Zhuowen would have won, but he would have to pay a certain price. Moreover, he might not have been able to kill Reverend Flaming Flame. Is this a fire god stone? Zhuowen broke the restriction on Reverend Flaming Flame's spirit ring and probed it with his divine sense. He was immediately attracted by a stone with raging flames on its surface. He recognized that this stone was a rare, refining material, the fire god stone. This was a heaven-breaking, level 6 material, one of the main materials for refining heaven-breaking, level 6 divine tools. Zhuowen was pleasantly surprised. With this fire god stone, he only needed to find a powerful refiner to upgrade the half-moon god flame spear to a heaven-breaking, level 6 divine tool. In addition to the fire god stone, there were also many chaos crystals, divine pills, talismans, and so on. Speaking of which, Reverend Flaming Flame's wealth was indeed considerable. After Zhuowen put away the many resources in the spirit ring, his facial muscles began to change, transforming into Reverend Flaming Flame's appearance. His aura was also simulated by grand mist energy, becoming exactly the same as Reverend Flaming Flame's. After doing all this, Zhuowen left the valley and returned to the World Auction House. Look, it's Reverend Flaming Flame. It seems that the rogue cultivator was most likely killed. Otherwise, Reverend Flaming Flame would not have returned so quickly. Isn't that obvious? What cultivation level is that rogue cultivator? He's only in the void god transformation, while Reverend Flaming Flame is an yin-yang transformation expert. The two are not on the same level. How could that rogue cultivator escape from Reverend Flaming Flame's pursuit? Zhuowen's return to the World Auction House immediately attracted the attention of many cultivators. After the auction ended, these cultivators basically waited outside the auction house. They were all waiting for Yun Kanglin to appear, hoping to find an opportunity to snatch the rank for Astral Soldier. Zhuowen shook his head inwardly. It seemed like these rogue cultivators had waited in vain. Yun Kanglin had long left the auction house through the secret passage. The experts in the private rooms had also left one after another. These guys were still waiting here. Wasn't it a waste of time? Zhuowen didn't pay any attention to these unaffiliated cultivators. Instead, he entered the World Auction House once more. Following his memories, he walked toward the box where the flaming sage was. Adept Flamewing, I've been waiting here for a long time. At the door of the box, a man wrapped in black cloth stood silently, facing Zhuowen. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Is the secret passage ready?" "It's ready. The other lords have already entered the secret passage. You're the only one left," the man said calmly. Zhuowen nodded and didn't say anything else. Instead, he walked straight into the private room. On the ground in the middle of the box, there was indeed a secret passage. It was dark and led to an unknown place. Zhuowen didn't hesitate and stepped into the depths of the secret passage. The secret passage was very deep and dark. The moment Zhuowen entered the secret passage, he frowned. Logically speaking, in this pitch-black environment, it should be the most suitable place for evil spirits to live. When he entered the secret passage of the Hong sect, he encountered many evil spirits in the dark environment. However, after entering the secret passage, he didn't encounter any evil spirits. Could it be that the World Auction House had wiped out all the evil spirits? Just in case, Zhuowen took out the light source on his body and quickly rushed into the depths of the secret passage. Not long after Zhuowen entered the secret passageway, the entrance to the secret passageway was sealed again. An evil glint flashed in the eyes of the man wrapped in black cloth. "President, are you sure you want to do this? This includes most of the major forces in the central state." Yusha had unknowingly walked to the man's side. Her charming eyes were filled with worry and fear. "If it was in the past, I might not have taken such drastic measures. But ever since Evil King Salado of Evil King Island was captured, I've become more and more uneasy. We've been lurking for so long, and our actions have been extremely secretive. Although the Exorcist family hasn't noticed us, the capture of Evil King Salado is a dangerous signal. The descendants of the Exorcist family have already begun to notice the central state. Before the descendants of the Exorcist family react, I must break through my shackles as soon as possible." The man's voice was low and magnetic. His entire body was wrapped in black cloth, leaving only a pair of scarlet eyes. Hearing this, Yusha nodded. What the man said was right. After Salado was captured, they were indeed shocked, which was why they took action in advance. A rank 4-star weapon, like the 3-fire True Mirror, was a treasure that their president had accidentally obtained. This time, in order to attract most of the experts in the central state, they had really bled a lot. Let's go. Let's go to the 100 Tempering Valley and wait for a good show." The man laughed sinisterly and left the private room with Yusha. "Looks like the exit of the secret passage is in front." Zhuowen quickly shuttled through the secret passage and soon discovered a bronze gate in front. He opened the gate and jumped out of the secret passage. This is when Zhuowen landed outside the secret passage. He was immediately shocked because he discovered that outside the secret passage, it was still pitch black. Moreover, this kind of pitch black was very familiar to Zhuowen. It was somewhat similar to the darkness of Evil King Island. Zhuowen secretly used the overwhelming righteous energy in his eyes. Instantly, his vision became much clearer. During this period of time, his Heaven and Earth Overwhelming Sutra had been improving. After using the overwhelming righteous energy, his vision expanded from nearly 100 meters to nearly 1,000 meters. He discovered that his surroundings were empty. Not far away, there were even mountains standing tall. He knew that he should be in a valley. However, what he couldn't understand was why this valley was dark. Logically speaking, it was still daytime. Apart from the darkness, what Zhuowen was even more puzzled was that there were actually no evil spirits around him. other than Zhuowen. He also discovered that there were many light sources around him. If one looked carefully, they were actually all experts in the World Auction House's private room. They were all sitting at their respective light sources and did not make a move. Instead, they silently observed their surroundings. Chapter 38:43. After observing for a while, Zhuowen quickly discovered Yun Kanglin. At this moment, Yun Kanglin and her maid were standing not far from the center of the valley. Beside them was a thick and solid stone pillar that emitted a bright light. Around Yun Kanglin, there were two sources of light that were the brightest, one in front and one behind, blocking Yun Kanglin's path. Zhuowen noticed that the owners of these two sources of light were Crimson Summit Temple's Gongye Bolong and Flood Martial Divine Sect's Sikong Chiyu. These two blocked Yun Kanglin's path, but they didn't make a move. Instead, they looked at their surroundings with a serious expression. Of course, they didn't cultivate the exorcism scripture, so their eyes and divine intent couldn't extend too long in the darkness. They could only see where the source of light shone. In this kind of darkness, even if Sikong Chiyu, Gongye Bolong, and Yun Kanglin were God domain transformation experts, they were blind. They didn't know where to go, let alone what kind of terrain they were in. Senior Brother Gongye, Senior Brother Sikong, this valley is very strange. I think we've all been tricked by the World Auction House. Yun Kanglin's expression was calm. She looked at Sikong Chiyu and Gongye Bolong and slowly said. Sikong Chiyu said with a smile, "Junior Sister Yun, we don't need you to remind us. We can see it too. How about this? You give me that rank for astral soldier, and we'll work together to leave this damned place." Gongye Bolong looked coldly at Sikong Chiyu and said, "Sikong Chiyu, you're dreaming. Give you the rank for astral soldier? You must be dreaming." Yun Kanglin said in a deep voice, "Senior brothers, I think now isn't the time for us to fight over the rank for astral soldier. Now that we're trapped, we should work together and leave this place first. As for the rank for astral soldier, you can fight over it after we get out. Yun Kanglin will accept it." Yun Kanglin said in a deep voice, "Junior Sister Yun is right. The situation here is unclear. It's not the time for us to have internal strife." Gongye Bolong agreed. Sikong Chiyu shrugged and didn't object, and she suggested instead, "I suggest that we gather all the cultivators here before splitting up and exploring this place. Logically speaking, this place is so dark that it should be filled with evil spirits. But now, it's so quiet that it's scary. Nothing has happened. I feel a little uneasy. I should leave this place as soon as possible." When she spoke up to hear, Sikong Chiyu's brows knit together tightly, and she faintly felt uneasy in her heart. Yun Kanglin and Gongye Bolong nodded in agreement. They also felt that something was wrong with this place, as if some kind of danger was approaching at any moment. Next, the three of them gathered all the cultivators in the area. "You must be Reverend Flame Wing. Everyone should be here by now." Sikong Chiyu looked at the approaching Zhuowen and waved her hand. Zhuowen nodded and stood in the middle of the group. Sikong Chiyu's trio's efficiency wasn't slow. They gathered everyone in half an incense stick's worth of time. "Everyone, we might have fallen into a trap set by the World Auction House. This place is too strange, and we can't even see our own fingers. It's extremely disadvantageous for us. Now that everyone is trapped, we should work together to escape first. I believe that everyone should have no objections." Sikong Chiyu's voice was very gentle, but it carried an unquestionable meaning. Everyone cursed in their hearts. Although they had followed for the rank for astral soldier, they were all opportunists. They had come to take advantage of the situation. They planned to wait for Sikong Chiyu, Gongye Bolong, and Yun Kanglin to fight until both sides were injured before they made their move. If they truly faced Sikong Chiyu's trio head-on, they truly didn't have the guts or courage. Now that Sikong Chiyu had proposed cooperation in front of them, how could they have the courage to refuse? If by any chance they refused, Sikong Chiyu's trio would probably immediately attack them. That would certainly be disastrous. Next, Sikong Chiyu arranged for everyone to bring their own light sources and explore the surroundings. If they could find a way out, they would immediately use their communication jade talismans to inform everyone. Zhuo Wen blended into the crowd and pretended to check out the surroundings. Actually, before Sikong Chiyu had gathered him, he had already used his overwhelming vital energy to thoroughly investigate the surrounding environment. This place was indeed a valley, but it didn't have any exit. And above the valley, there was a strange pitch-black energy condensed like a dark cloud. This pitch-black energy was the power of a demonic spirit. Moreover, it was some kind of domain created by an extremely powerful demonic spirit. Ah! Suddenly, a miserable shriek resounded in the sky. Zhuowen raised his head and saw a peak 5 elements transformation expert attempting to ascend to the sky to look for an exit. But just as he arrived not far from that pitch-black energy, countless pitch-black energy transformed into sharp thorns and thoroughly pierced through this person. This person's miserable shriek didn't last for long before he was torn to pieces by this strange energy. At this moment, all the cultivators raised their heads to look at the sky, but all they could see was darkness, and all they could hear was a scream. Only Zhuowen saw this scene from beginning to end. Everyone pay attention. The sky is not safe. Don't fly up casually. Although Sikong Chiyu couldn't see what exactly happened, she could guess from that cultivator's miserable shriek that the sky was definitely not a good place. Not long after, everyone gathered at the central location again. Their complexions were very unsightly because they didn't find any exit at all. They only knew that this was a valley without an exit. This is simply a cage. Someone deliberately trapped us here. Someone said with a pale face, "What is the World Auction House doing? Why did they deliberately lead us here? Aren't they afraid of provoking public anger?" Someone said indignantly, just when everyone was panicking and feeling helpless, a mocking chuckle suddenly came from above the valley. "Everyone, welcome to my Prado's furnace." A sharp voice came from above and echoed in the valley. "Prado, what the hell are you?" Gongya Bolong frowned and shouted angrily, "Brother Gongya, you don't recognize my voice so quickly? Prado is my original name, and my name in the world of cultivators is Cho Wan." That voice sneered. "What? Cho Wan? The president of the World Auction House, Cho Wan." Gongya Bolong said in shock, "Cho Wan, what do you mean? You also know our background, right? You trapped all of us here. Aren't you afraid that the forces behind us will unite and destroy your World Auction House?" Yun Kanglin shouted coldly. Cho Wan laughed and said, "From today onwards, there is no more Cho Wan in this world. There is only Prado, Evil Charm Prado." Chapter 3844. The president of the World Auction House, Cho Wan, was actually an evil spirit? In their impression, didn't evil spirits only exist in the darkness? If Cho Wan was an evil spirit, how did he come out to meet people during the day? According to what they said, Cho Wan, as the president, had appeared in public many times and even chatted with some experts who were on good terms with him. Zhuowen was also quite puzzled. He could feel that Prado's strength might be stronger than evil King Salado, but not by much. But even evil King Salado, as an evil spirit, only dared to live in Evil King Island and didn't dare to show his face in public during the day. And this Prado not only disguised as the president of the World Auction House, but also didn't fear the day. Was this possible? Prado didn't explain. He had a secret technique that could turn himself into a soul state, and then, like a parasite, invade a cultivator's soul and destroy it, and he would replace it with the protection of the cultivator's shell. Prado could move even during the day, but the restrictions were greater. Everyone, the feast that I, Prado, have prepared for you is about to begin. Prado's malevolent voice slowly sounded, and then the whole valley was filled with horrifying wails and howls. When everyone heard it, their faces slightly changed. They weren't unfamiliar with this sound. It was the howls of evil spirits. They finally knew why there wasn't even a shadow of an evil spirit in this dark valley at the beginning. It turned out that all of this was Prado's arrangement. In the center of the valley, the cultivators gathered together. Their light sources were also gathered together, emitting extremely bright light. Everyone gather together and don't leave the light source. No matter how strong the evil spirit is, it's still afraid of the light source. Sikong, Chiyu calmly said. Beside Sikong, Chiyu stood Yun Kanglin and Gongya Bolong, 3 God domain transformation initial stage powerhouses gathered here, and the surrounding cultivators who were originally panicking calmed down. It's useless. I've already considered everything when I arranged this valley. Your light source won't last long. Prado's complacent voice sounded, and then the cultivators gathered in the center keenly discovered that the range of the light source was shrinking and the darkness was closing in step by step. How is this possible? The light source is actually being eroded? Some cultivators exclaimed in disbelief. Sikong Chiyu, Gongya Bolong, and Yun Kanglin's faces turned ugly. They were also shocked by how powerful the darkness in the valley was. It could actually erode the light source. At this speed, the light source would soon be completely covered by darkness. Zhuowen didn't look too good. He cultivated both the nature energy and the growth of all things at the same time. Therefore, his eyes were able to see everything clearly in the darkness. At this moment, the originally empty valley was filled with ferocious and terrifying evil spirits. The reason why his expression was ugly was because some of the evil spirits in the valley were actually soldier-level evil spirits. Although the soldier-level evil charm was of a lower level than the fighter-level evil charm, it was superior to the most common near-level evil charm. Back then, when he was in the strange canyon on Evil King Island, the huge evil spirit he encountered was a soldier-level evil spirit. At that time, Zhuowen was not a match for the soldier-level evil spirit at all. But now, Zhuowen had cultivated the growth of all things. Moreover, his righteous energy had fused with the Grand Mist aura and shattered God Force to form an even higher level of power. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was confident that he could defeat the soldier-level evil spirit. On the other hand, Zhuowen did not have any confidence in defeating the fighter-level evil spirit. Without a doubt, Prado was definitely a fighter-level evil spirit. Zhuowen was naturally not a match for him. However, Zhuowen did not intend to fight Prado head-on. He had been observing the valley. He knew that in this world, there was nothing that could be kept secret. No matter how tightly this valley was set up, there would definitely be loopholes. As long as he could find that loophole, then, with the exorcism energy he cultivated, he would be able to escape smoothly. It's there. Soon, Zhuowen used the growth of all things to find the weak spot in the valley's darkness. However, the weak spot was in the darkness directly above, and that was where Prado was. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. He knew that with Prado guarding there, he had no chance to leave now. He could only wait now. Sikong Chiyu, Gongya Bolong, and Yun Kanglin, these 3 God domain transformation powerhouses, were too powerful. Even the soldier-level evil spirit would find it difficult to break through their joint forces. Prado would definitely make a move in the end. The speed of the darkness was extremely fast. In just half an incense stick's time, the light source had become extremely weak. there were already cultivators shrouded in the darkness. Suddenly, countless evil spirits rushed over and began to madly attack those cultivators who had entered the darkness. And those cultivators who had entered the darkness roared and began to take out their divine tools and bombarded them in all directions. It should be known that those who could enter the valley were all illustrious experts in the central state. Their cultivation was at least at the yin-yang transformation realm. Although they did not cultivate the exorcism energy and could not see the specific location of the evil spirits in the darkness, their shattering power was still very strong. Even if they could not use their eyes and divine sense, their 5 senses were very strong. They could fight by grasping wind and grasping shadows. Everyone, our only way out now is to kill Prado. As long as we kill Prado, we can get out alive. Everyone, please cover the 3 of us. We will directly attack Prado. Victory or defeat will depend on this move. Sikong Chiu suddenly shouted. Her voice was like thunder, spreading throughout the entire valley. Elder Sikong is right. We must kill Prado. We are willing to help you. Many cultivators in the surroundings echoed. They also knew that this was the only way now. At this time, if they did not work together, then they would really be digging their own grave. Zhuowen mixed in with the cultivators and echoed. His eyes became brighter and brighter. As long as Prado left that weak spot, then he would have a chance to leave this valley. Fight! Sikong Chiu shouted. Many cultivators rushed out one after another toward Prado, who was in the sky. Ao, ao, ao. Countless evil spirits, like a black gale, blocked in front of these cultivators. However, these cultivators were also not afraid of death. Although they could not see the evil spirits, their ears could hear the movement of the evil spirits and determine their location. Although the number of evil spirits blocking in front of Prado was large, the number of cultivators was also not small. Moreover, all of them were experts. They actually managed to open a bloody path for Sikong Chiu, and the other 2. Zhuowen silently followed the crowd of cultivators. He pretended to fight the evil spirits around him, but his eyes were closely watching the movements of Sikong Chiu, Gongya Bolong, and Yun Kanglin. Sikong Chiu and the other 2 followed the bloody path opened by the cultivators and rushed straight to the highest point of the valley. Although they could not see the specific scene in the darkness, they could feel Prado's aura. Attack! Chapter 38:45. Prado watched coldly from the sidelines. He didn't panic when he saw Sikong Chiu, Gongya Bolong, and Yun Kanglin joining forces to attack him. Humph! So what if the 3 of you join forces in this valley? You're still no match for me, Prado said as he took a step forward and punched out. Instantly, the surrounding darkness formed a powerful black vortex that swept towards Sikong Chiu and the other 2. The trio's complexion slightly changed. Their domains violently trembled under the bombardment of the black vortex. Then, the 3 of them retreated. Zhuowen's eyes turned solemn. The trio's divine domains were very powerful, but Prado was able to repel them with a single punch. This clearly showed how terrifying Prado was. The 3 of you, don't hold back. We're in Prado's domain now. We must go all out. Otherwise, let alone killing Prado, the 3 of us may be killed. Sikong Chiu furiously shouted. The shattered divine power in his body circulated at high speed. His divine domain became more and more powerful. He even took out his natal divine artifact. Gongya, Bolong, and Yun Kanglin knew that they were no match for Prado if they didn't go all out. So, they no longer held back. Boom, boom, boom. Sikong Chiu and the other 2 collided with Prado again. Terrifying energy ripples swept out and tore the surrounding evil spirits into pieces. As for the nearby cultivators, their expressions changed drastically. They quickly scattered in all directions, trying to avoid the terrifying energy ripples that were sweeping towards them. However, there were still some unlucky cultivators who couldn't dodge in time and were seriously injured by the energy ripples. They fell to the ground and were besieged by many evil spirits. They let out mournful screams. Prado's complexion slightly changed. Sikong Chiyu and the other two's all-out attack actually caused him a lot of trouble. The battle between the four became more and more intense. The terrifying aftermath of the battle almost filled the entire valley. The other cultivators who were fighting with the evil spirit in the valley stopped what they were doing and retreated to the edge of the valley when they felt the terrifying shockwaves. Although they couldn't see the specific situation of the battle, they could feel how terrifying the battle in the central sky was. They didn't dare to rashly approach it. As for the evil spirits in the valley, they hid in the darkness and shivered after Prado attacked. Zhuowen stood at the edge of the valley and silently watched the battle in the central sky. This Prado is so strong. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with dread. He saw that Prado had single-handedly taken on Sikong Chiyu, Gongye Bolong, and Yun Kanglin, 3 God domain experts. Not only had he not fallen into a disadvantageous position, he had even gained the upper hand. Looks like Sikong Chiyu and the other 2 are going to be defeated. Zhuowen thought to himself, this Prado was much stronger than the evil King Salado. He was probably an evil spirit at the peak of the fighting level. He was not far from the warrior level. Bang! Prado shouted and punched out. All the dark energy in the valley gathered on his fist. Sikong Chiyu and the other 2's expressions changed. Under the terrifying fist aura, they vomited blood and were sent flying. They had suffered heavy injuries. Sikong Chiyu, Gongye Bolong, and Yun Kanglin all retreated. A ferocious smile appeared on Prado's face. He immediately locked onto Yun Kanglin and took a step forward. Darkness engulfed him. Yun Kanglin, the 3 Fires' true mirror, has been my treasure for many years. I will leave it with you for safekeeping for the time being. Hand it over now. Before the people from Prado arrived, a cold voice was heard. Yun Kanglin's expression changed. She forcibly suppressed the injuries in her body and used her agility technique to retreat. Prado, I will give you the 3 Fires' true mirror. Can you let me go? Yun Kanglin's agility technique was extremely fast. She drifted with the wind like a ghost. She said to Prado while retreating. She had realized that Prado had the advantage of time and place. She had no chance of winning if she were to fight with Prado in this valley. Even Sikong Chiyu and Gongye Bolong were repelled by Prado. She knew very well that she had to hand over the 3 Fires' true mirror if she wanted to live. Prado grinned and said, Yun Kanglin, you won't live for long. When you die, won't the 3 Fires' true mirror be mine? I want the 3 Fires' true mirror. I also want your life. Prado roared. His speed suddenly increased. He shuttled back and forth in the darkness. It was almost impossible to catch sight of his figure. Yun Kanglin's expression changed greatly. Although she couldn't see Prado, her divine sense could clearly sense that Prado's speed was increasing. Moreover, he was quickly approaching her. An intense sense of danger quickly crept into Yun Kanglin's heart. Yun Kanglin shouted, "Oh no!" as a horrifying astral wind swept out from behind her. It was a huge and dark fist. Yun Kanglin's reaction wasn't slow. She immediately turned around and blocked with the divine sword in her hand. Crack! The terrifying fist aura exploded. The divine sword in Yun Kanglin's hand exploded. Yun Kanglin screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. She fell down like a withered leaf. Prado grinned hideously. He took a step forward and appeared above Yun Kanglin, who was still falling down. Die, Yun Kanglin! Prado stomped his right foot and stomped on Yun Kanglin's chest. Yun Kanglin spat out a mouthful of blood. She was then stomped to the ground by Prado. The entire valley violently trembled a few times. Sikong Chiyu and Gongya Belong's expressions changed greatly. They could barely sense Yun Kanglin's aura. Could it be that Yun Kanglin was killed by Prado's attack? Thinking of this, Sikong Chiyu and Gongya Belong's expressions turned ugly. Even when the three of them joined forces, they were still at a disadvantage against Prado. Now that Yun Kanglin had fallen, the two of them were even less likely to be Prado's match. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. In his field of vision, Yun Kanglin wasn't dead. However, she wasn't far from death. She was almost at her last breath. Zhuowen realized that Prado wasn't paying attention to him. Therefore, Zhuowen slowly walked over and gradually approached Prado and Yun Kanglin. "Prado, don't kill me. I'll give you the 3-fire true mirror right away." Yun Kanglin's eyes were filled with fear. She quickly begged for mercy, for her to cultivate to the God domain transformation. It was unknown how many trials and tribulations she had experienced before finally reaching this stage. She wasn't willing to die like this. She didn't want to waste all her years of cultivation. "That will depend on your performance." Prado grinned and stood in front of Yun Kanglin. He looked down at Yun Kanglin, who was lying on the ground and was almost at her last breath. Yun Kanglin's delicate body trembled. She took out a spiritual ring with trembling hands. She slowly raised her right hand, and a fawning smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Prado smiled coldly. When he reached out his hand to take the spiritual ring, a figure was faster than him. Before he could grab the spiritual ring, the figure grabbed the spiritual ring and quickly rushed towards the center of the sky. Prado was stunned. He looked at Yun Kanglin's empty hand. Then he let out an earth-shattering roar and quickly chased after the figure. At the same time, Prado was bewildered. In this dark valley, cultivators couldn't use their divine sense and eyes. Normally, cultivators would not be able to see Yun Kanglin handing over the spiritual ring to him. Prado had this mentality. Therefore, he didn't take any precautions against the cultivators nearby. In his mind, these cultivators were like blind people in the valley. However, at this moment, he was really shocked. This person had grasped the timing and speed of his attack very accurately. Chapter 3846. After Yun Kanglin was defeated, he knew that Prado would definitely take her spiritual ring. He had been waiting for this moment. The result did not disappoint him. He successfully took Yun Kanglin's spiritual ring. "Human, this is unforgivable. How dare you steal from me? You must be tired of living." Prado roared. His roar echoed throughout the valley. All the cultivators in the valley were stunned. Their hearts were filled with questions. They had no idea what was going on. When Zhuowen reached the weak spot, Prado had already caught up with him. A terrifying fist aura enveloped him and blasted toward his back. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He suddenly turned around and clenched his right hand into a fist. He exerted all his strength, and a vast amount of Hong Meng divine power poured out. Crack! The crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard. Zhuowen's right arm was bent. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. Prado's body swayed, and he stopped in his tracks. He looked at Zhuowen, who had fallen to the ground in shock. In the moment when they exchanged blows, he could clearly feel that the energy that surged out of this human cultivator's body was extremely powerful. It was much more powerful than the ordinary broken divine power. Moreover, he could even feel the aura of righteousness in that energy. It was because of this energy that this human cultivator could barely block his attack with his empty god transformation stage cultivation. With his strength, he could easily crush a yin-yang transformation stage cultivator with a finger. However, this empty god transformation stage cultivator was only severely injured and managed to survive. This was definitely a freak. Zhuowen coughed out another mouthful of blood. His face was pale, and he struggled to get up. The corner of his mouth was filled with bitterness. Prado's strength was indeed terrifying. With his current cultivation, it was too difficult for him to fight with such an expert. Die! After Prado recovered from his initial shock, the killing intent in his eyes became even more intense. He took a step forward and charged toward Zhuowen like a comet. This attack was extremely terrifying. If Zhuowen was hit by it, he would definitely die. Sect leader, it's time for you to show off. Zhuowen's eyes darkened. He did not hesitate to release the slovenly cultivator. As soon as the slovenly cultivator came out, his eyes fell on Prado, who was charging toward him. Zhuowen had already explained everything about this valley to him earlier. This evil spirit is not bad. He's even stronger than Salado. The slovenly Taoist priest chuckled and stood on the spot lazily. He did not take Prado seriously at all. The killing intent in Prado's eyes became even stronger. Although he did not know why Zhuowen had summoned a person, in his eyes make no difference. Soon, Prado realized that something was wrong. This was because after the slovenly Taoist appeared, a blazing golden light surged out from his body. This golden light was too dazzling, like a rainbow piercing through the sun. It actually penetrated the darkness of the entire valley. This is righteousness? Are you from the Exorcist family? Prado cried out in fear. His momentum of rushing down immediately froze. The slovenly cultivator grinned. He did not give Prado any time to think. He took a step forward, and his body was enveloped by righteousness. He charged forward like a god. Little guy, it's your bad luck to meet me. The slovenly cultivator laughed. The moment he arrived in front of Prado, he punched with his right fist. Rays of light shot out in all directions. Prado shouted. He knew that it was too late to retreat. He could only counter with a punch. Pitter-patter. Continuous sounds rang out. And then Prado's right hand was torn apart by the overwhelming righteousness, while he fell to the ground in a sorry state. The slovenly cultivator snorted and pressed his right hand down. Endless righteousness condensed into a golden mountain and pressed down on Prado's body. Prado screamed in pain. Next, the slovenly cultivator repeated the same thing. He used righteousness to refine Prado. Prado screamed as he was being refined. Finally, the tall Prado shrunk to the size of a palm. He looked like a mini. The slovenly cultivator retracted his righteousness and grabbed Prado. He threw him to Zhuowen and said, "Daowen, he'll be your pet from now on." Prado trembled. Most of his power had been refined by the slovenly cultivator. He was so weak that he could not even truss a chicken. He was even weaker than a demonic spirit. Zhuowen grabbed Prado and sighed in his heart. The sloppy Taoist's righteous chi was abnormally strong. Prado had actually finished him off in one move. Moreover, he could vaguely feel that the slovenly cultivator's righteousness was even more powerful than when he was on Evil Monarch Island. "Break through the dark clouds and leave this valley," Zhuowen said. The slovenly cultivator nodded. He took a step forward and punched the center of the dark clouds. Cracking sounds could be heard. Then, the dark clouds that shrouded the valley collapsed. Light from the outside poured down and landed in the valley. The demonic spirits that were originally in the valley had nowhere to hide when the light appeared. They turned into white smoke and disappeared. The cultivators in the valley all smiled, as if they had just survived a calamity. Their gazes fell on the slovenly cultivator floating in the sky. They all showed reverence and then knelt on the ground. Even Sikong Chiyu and Gongye Bolong knelt on the ground, although they could not see what happened in the dark. But from the sound, they could tell that Prado had been defeated and the dark clouds had been shattered. And the one who did all this was the slovenly cultivator floating in the sky. He looked no different from a beggar. Even Prado was not this person's match. Without a doubt, they all thought that this slovenly cultivator was at least a demonic transformation stage expert. Such a powerhouse was a powerhouse that stood at the peak of the entire central continent. Almost no one could defeat him. Senior, thank you for saving my life. If it's convenient, Senior, please tell us your name. Sikong Chiyu said respectfully. This humble cultivator does not change his name. I am. Just as the slovenly Taoist was about to say his name, Zhuowen grabbed his hand and left the valley without a second thought. What a joke! The weakest cultivator here was an yin-yang transformation stage expert. If the slovenly cultivator exposed himself, they would not even know how they died. Moreover, they had not realized it yet. If they did, they would remember that the 3-fire true mirror was on him. They would not let it go. Where is that senior? A cultivator looked up and saw the empty sky. He could not help but be puzzled. Sikong Chiyu and Gongye Bolong looked at each other and showed a trace of doubt. But soon they thought of something and immediately came to Yun Kanglin's side. At this moment, Yun Kanglin was on the verge of death. She would not be able to hold on for much longer. Chapter 38:47. On Evil King Island, dark clouds covered the sky, and it was extremely gloomy. Within a radius of tens of thousands of miles around Evil King Island, not a single blade of grass grew. A divine ship turned into a ray of light and landed on the shore of Evil King Island. Darkness swept over as countless evil spirits flew over in a frenzy and surrounded the divine ship. Humph! Get lost! A loud shout came from within the divine ship. What followed was a blazing golden light that spread out in all directions like rain. The evil spirits that surrounded the divine ship screamed in agony the moment they encountered the golden light. Then they were all annihilated into nothingness. A bunch of trash. How dare you disturb my peace? The sloppy Taoist's proud voice could be heard, revealing the identity of the owner of the divine ship. Zhuowen kept the divine ship. Purplish gold energy surged around his body. Any evil spirits that got close to him were all annihilated by the purplish gold energy. The great vital energy in Zhuowen's body had already merged with the primordial qi and broken divine power to form a new energy. It was the great primordial divine power. Not only could this divine power be used against enemies, but it was even more effective against evil spirits than the great vital energy. What surprised Zhuowen even more was that he could still continue to cultivate the universal scripture and broken divine power. After these two types of energy entered his body, they would merge with his great primordial divine power and increase his cultivation level. Therefore, even if Zhuowen cultivated the universal scripture, his cultivation level could still increase. However, the speed of increase would not be too obvious. Daokong, Dokyo, and the sloppy Taoist followed behind Zhuowen. They were also circulating the great vital energy and looked like little golden men. Senior brother Daowen, why did your great vital energy turn purplish gold? Dokyo asked curiously. Daokong and the sloppy Taoist were also looking at the purplish gold energy that surged around Zhuowen's body. This was especially so for the slovenly Taoist. He could sense the aura of righteousness from the purple gold energy. Apart from that, he could also sense other powers. My nature energy seems to have mutated. Actually, I'm not too sure what's going on. Zhuowen scratched the back of his head and looked at the slovenly Taoist. He would never forget the mysterious voice that he had heard in the secret chamber beneath the ruins of the Hong sect. The founder of the Hong sect was called Hong Shenwu, and he looked exactly like the slovenly Taoist. It was also the voice that gave him the direction and allowed him to fuse the great vital energy and primordial qi into a new power. However, Zhuowen helplessly discovered that the slovenly Taoist had a blank expression. Could it be that the founder of the sect only had the same name as the slovenly Taoist, and they were actually two different people? Zhuowen felt that this was the most plausible idea. After all, the Hong sect had been destroyed for a long time. No matter how powerful the founder of the Hong sect was, he would not be able to defeat Han Gu Shengzhen. It was not hard to imagine what would have happened to the founder of the Hong sect. He would not have survived. Brother Dawen, you are so lucky. Your nature energy has mutated. I can see that your nature energy is of a much higher quality than ours. I also want to mutate it. Dao Kong said enviously. Zhuowen smiled wryly. Although he felt a little guilty for not telling the truth, he still managed to get away with it. Salado is no longer here, but the dark clouds over the Evil King Island are still lingering. It seems that the dark clouds are not formed by Salado's power. They are formed naturally. Zhuowen looked at the rolling black clouds in the sky and changed the topic. Yes, after Salado's departure, the evil spirits here have become undisciplined and wander around freely. I remember that the last time we came here, there were not so many evil spirits on the shore. The slovenly Taoist nodded in agreement with Zhuowen's words. This Evil King Island is the best shelter for us. Let's set up our new base in the valley at the center of Evil King Island. Zhuowen led the way. He remembered that the valley in the middle of the island was the lair of the Evil King, Salado. There was a huge stone room in the middle of the valley. The layout of the room was not bad, and it could be used as the new base of the Hong sect. Soon, the four of them entered the valley in the middle of the island. They stood at the entrance of the valley, and their faces were not looking good. Back then, the valley was extremely quiet. There was not a single evil spirit in sight. After all, this was Salado's territory. Those low-level evil spirits did not dare to come close to this territory. But since Salado was no longer around, this place had been completely taken over by countless evil spirits. Moreover, there was an extremely large number of these evil spirits. They were densely packed and almost covered every corner of the entire valley. Zhuowen also noticed that there were more than 10 soldier-level evil spirits. These evil spirits were second only to the combat-level evil spirits. They were not weak either. Even Zhuowen would have a hard time dealing with a dozen of them. Of course, this was nothing to the shabby Taoist priest. Dawen, bring out Prado, the shabby Taoist priest suddenly said. Zhuowen nodded. He knew what the shabby Taoist priest was going to do next. Human, you are too much. How dare you pinch my head? I will kill you. Zhuowen pinched Prado's head with his thumb and index finger. Prado kept struggling and cursing angrily. Prado had been refined to the size of a palm by the shabby Taoist priest. He did not have much strength left. Zhuowen did not take his threat seriously. Although Prado was almost crippled, he was still a double-level evil spirit, and his aura still existed. The shabby Taoist priest wanted to use Prado's aura to suppress the evil spirits in the valley. After all, the valley was so big that there were too many evil spirits. Even the shabby Taoist priest would have to spend a lot of time and effort to get rid of so many evil spirits. He might as well use Prado's aura to get rid of the evil spirits in the valley. Zhuowen laughed and used his vast Hong Meng divine power to form a thin rope to bind Prado. What are you doing? Prado's face changed. He looked at the evil smile on Zhuowen's face, and his heart sank. Use your identity as a combat-level evil spirit. After saying this, Zhuo threw Prado into the center of the valley without any hesitation. Prado flew out in a parabola and landed near the center of the valley. Bang! Prado fell to the ground in a sorry state, smashing out a huge crater. Chapter 3848. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The evil spirits in the valley scattered when they felt Prado's aura. Even the evil spirits who occupied the best spots ran away as fast as they could, as if they were in a hurry to be reincarnated. Not long after, other than Prado, there were no other evil spirits in the valley. It became empty. I'm smart. This method is really effective. There are no more evil spirits in the valley. The slovenly Taoist priest said proudly as he strode into the valley. The slovenly Taoist priest walked to Prado's side and grabbed him. Prado was furious. However, he immediately shut his mouth when he saw the slovenly Taoist priest. He clearly remembered that it was this sloppy Taoist who had beaten him to such a state with a single move. What? Do you have a problem with me? The slovenly Taoist priest held Prado in his right hand and looked at him with hostility. Prado was silent. He lowered his head and sighed. He knew that he had no chance of turning the tables in this man's hands. Therefore, he stopped struggling. Zhuo, the slovenly Taoist priest, and the other two started to get busy. They found Salato's stone room in the valley. They were surprised to find that the chaotic energy in Salato's stone room was very rich. It was as rich as the Hong sex when it was at its peak. According to the slovenly Taoist priest, the chaotic energy here was even richer. Zhuo knew that there should be a high-quality chaos gem vein under the valley. The four of them were pleasantly surprised. They started to decorate their cave abodes in the stone room. The stone room was too shabby. It was not suitable for cultivators to live in. If they did not decorate it, it would be very uncomfortable. The four of them spent half a day decorating their respective cave abodes. The slovenly Taoist priest ran to the entrance of the valley excitedly and tied Prado up on a stone pillar at the entrance of the valley. He said that Prado would be their guardian from now on. He could prevent evil spirits from entering the valley without permission. This made Prado suffer. He was actually used as a shield and was trapped at the entrance of the valley. This was really too humiliating. He was a dignified, fighting, level evil spirit. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? After the cave residences were set up, the four of them went to their respective residences to cultivate. It would be a waste if he did not cultivate in a place with such rich chaotic energy. Zhuo arrived at his cave mansion and sat cross-legged on the stone bed. He took out the spirit ring that he had snatched from Yun Kanglin. The restriction formation on the surface of Yun Kanglin's spiritual ring was quite complicated. Even with Zhuo's fourth-tier array skills, it took him 10 days to crack the restriction formation. The moment Zhuo opened the spiritual ring, he saw an unimaginable amount of chaos crystals, divine pills, divine herbs, and many other precious cultivation resources. Yun Kanglin deserved to be called a god realm ascendant. She was indeed rich. The resources in this spiritual ring were dozens of times more than what he had obtained in the 100 outer regions. Furthermore, Zhuo knew that Yun Kanglin had spent 100 million chaos gems to purchase the 3-fire true mirror. If Yun Kanglin had not spent the 100 million chaos gems, the amount of chaos gems inside could be described as a mountain. Zhuo moved his divine thought, and everything in the spiritual ring was transferred into the great world by Zhuo. Then he flipped his right hand, and a broken copper mirror fragment appeared in his palm. It was the 4th-tier astral weapon, 3-fire true mirror, that was auctioned off by the World Auction House. Zhuo looked at the broken copper mirror in front of him with a burning gaze. He could feel the blazing temperature surging from the surface of the copper mirror. Moreover, this temperature was not ordinary. Not only could Zhuowen's physical body feel it, but his soul could also feel it clearly. He did not doubt that if the temperature was high enough, his physical body and soul would be incinerated. Zhuowen took a deep breath, and his gaze became very serious. He had already seen the power of a third-tier astral weapon. It was truly terrifying. A fourth-tier astral weapon would probably be much, much stronger than a third-tier astral weapon. The artifact spirit in the three-fire true mirror would definitely be stronger than Zhuowen imagined. Although he had a treasure like the Supreme Word Stone, he was still a little worried about whether he could completely tame the artifact spirit of the three-fire true mirror. After all, in the 100 outer regions, the use of astral weapons was inseparable from the blood sacrifice. The relationship between the astral weapon spirit and the wielder was more of a cooperative relationship than a master-servant relationship. As long as the wielder could sacrifice enough living beings to feed the astral weapon spirit would be able to lend a portion of the astral weapon spirit's power. It did not matter if the wielder was Zhang San or Li Si. As long as the wielder fed the astral weapon spirit, the wielder would be able to use the astral weapon spirit's power. However, Zhuowen's method was purely taming. It would cause the artifact spirit's backlash. Back then, he had only tamed second-tier astral weapons. Now, he was taming fourth-tier astral weapon spirit. To be honest, this was a bit too much. Let's try it first. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He still decided to give it a try. He derived a strand of divine sense and entered the three-fire true mirror. Then, the scenery before his eyes constantly changed. In the end, he discovered that he had appeared in a wasteland. At the end of the wasteland stood 3 towering mountains. Among these 3 mountains, there was a mountain in the middle that burned with blood-red flames. The fierce light was reflected in the sky and then reflected on the ground, dyeing the wasteland a blood-red color. On the 2 sides of this blood-red mountain were 2 mountains with extinguished flames. The mountains were bare and pitch black. Other than the wasteland and these 3 strange mountains, there was nothing else in the surroundings. Zhuowen did not hesitate. He lifted his foot and rushed toward the blood-red mountain in front of him. Not long after, he arrived at the foot of the blood-red mountain. From afar, the 3 mountains seemed to be very close. However, now that Zhuowen had arrived at the foot of the mountain, he could see that the distance between the 3 mountains was actually quite far. Zhuowen silently stood at the foot of the mountain. He raised his head and indifferently looked at the mountain that was burning with blood-red flames before him. Terrifying heat pervaded the air, as if he was standing in a furnace. However, Zhuowen did not seem to feel it. He looked indifferently at the blood-red mountain and said, "You should be the three-fire true mirror's artifact spirit, right? Why don't you show yourself?" Zhuowen had just finished speaking when a terrifying heat wave gushed out from within the mountain. Strange crackling sounds could be heard in the air. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He circulated his vast grand mist god force and stood on the spot as if his feet were rooted to the ground. He silently looked at the blood-red mountain in front of him. You have some strength. It seems that the owner's strength is not bad, although his cultivation is a little weak. But it doesn't matter. I will give you power that surpasses your imagination. And you only need to sacrifice your soul mark, become my slave, and acknowledge me as your master. You will immediately obtain an inexhaustible amount of power in this world. A majestic voice came from the blood-red mountain. Then, Zhuowen discovered that the terrifying heat wave around him had disappeared, and the blood-red flames on the mountain surface had also disappeared. A man stood at the peak of the mountain. Chapter 3849. Zhuowen frowned. His cheeks were slightly flushed. He had forcefully withstood that terrifying heat wave, and his aura had become unstable. The fiery-haired man looked down at Zhuowen, his eyes filled with curiosity. In his eyes, Zhuowen's aura was only at the early stage of the Void God transformation realm. In his eyes, this kind of cultivation was not even worth mentioning. In his opinion, the heat wave he had just unleashed was enough to destroy this person's body and soul. However, what surprised him was that not only was Zhuowen unscathed, he had not even taken a single step back. The fiery-haired man was now deeply interested in Zhuowen. As long as Zhuowen was willing to acknowledge him as his master, he would acknowledge him as his servant and bestow his power for Zhuowen to use. Of course, the fiery-haired man never thought that Zhuowen would reject him. He was the artifact spirit of a rank 4 astral weapon. In the central state, it was practically the highest grade of astral weapon. Almost no one would reject his somewhat unreasonable request. One had to know that his previous owners had acknowledged him as their master without hesitation after learning of his request, and he had bestowed them with a corresponding amount of power. "I want all of your power." Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he spoke indifferently. The fiery-haired man slowly narrowed his eyes and coldly looked at Zhuowen. "Did you just say that you want all of my power? Among all the previous owners, your appetite is the largest. Unfortunately, you are my servant and have no right to command all of my power." Zhuowen's gaze was as calm as an ancient, well as he spoke again. "If you become my servant, then all of your power will be mine." The fiery-haired man finally became serious. Flames of fury and killing intent rose in his eyes. "Human, you're really pushing your luck. What do you think you are? A Void God transformation realm ant wants to control me? Even a Void God transformation realm powerhouse would have to acknowledge me as his master in front of me." The fire-haired man's expression turned cold. He slowly stepped forward, and the extinguished mountain was once again ignited with blazing blood flames. He bathed in the blood flames as he walked down the mountain peak. A terrifying pressure came crashing down, and the entire wasteland seemed to tremble. Zhuowen's face changed. The 3 Fire True Mirrors artifact spirit was too strong. It was much stronger than the purple gold toad's artifact spirit. However, his spiritual consciousness had already entered the 3 Fire True Mirror. Naturally, he could not retreat just like that. He wanted to see if the Supreme Word Stone could subdue this artifact spirit. Bang! Zhuowen took a step forward and executed the Grand Mist movement technique. He transformed into a ghostly purple shadow and instantly appeared behind the fiery-haired man. Rumble! Zhuowen punched out, and the power of the Grand Mist soldier mantra poured out in torrents. Numerous weapon phantoms condensed within Zhuowen's fist and blasted into the fire-haired man's back. Bang! However, to Zhuowen's disbelief, the fiery-haired man turned around at an unbelievable speed and threw out a backhand punch. When the 2 fists collided, a terrifying energy ripple exploded, and the air rumbled. Zhuowen grunted and flew backward. He spat out a mouthful of sweet blood. The fiery-haired man took a step back and looked at Zhuowen in surprise. "Are you really in the Void God transformation realm? You are actually so powerful. This is really beyond my expectations." "Unfortunately, you are still too weak. You want me to acknowledge you as my master? This was simply wishful thinking. I think you should just die here." The fiery-haired man stomped his right foot on the mountain. Suddenly, the blood flames in the mountain condensed into a huge fire qilin. It roared and charged out. Zhuowen's body was still in midair. When he saw the fire qilin rapidly approaching him, a ruthless look appeared in his eyes. He ignored his injuries and forcefully executed the Grand Mist movement technique. He barely managed to dodge the Fire Cheelant's fatal attack. However, the Fire Cheelant's speed wasn't any slower than his. It actually followed closely behind him. Meanwhile, Zhuowen had suffered serious injuries. If he continued to flee like this, his injuries would worsen. At that time, his speed would also decrease. In the end, he would be caught by the Fire Cheelant. At that time, he would really die without a burial place. 10,000 sword slash. A ruthless look appeared in Zhuowen's eyes. He tapped his glabella. Instantly, streaks of spiritual sword intent shot out. At this moment, he immediately released 10,000 streaks of spiritual sword intent. The terrifying spiritual sword intent filled the air. It was filled with a terrifying destructive power that could tear anything apart at any time. Zhuowen had already comprehended the ancient sword visualization, painting to the last level. His spiritual sword had successfully reached the heaven-crushing 5 transformation realm, and every streak of spiritual sword intent he released contained the power of the heaven-crushing 5 transformation realm. 10,000 streaks of spiritual sword intent of the same power was extremely terrifying. Even a yin-yang transformation realm cultivator would be torn to shreds. Bang, 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 bang. Countless streaks of spiritual sword intent slashed the Fire Cheelant's body, sending countless sparks flying. Meanwhile, the Fire Cheelant roared furiously. Terrifying crimson flames erupted from its body and drowned out the surrounding spiritual sword intent. However, there was really too much spiritual sword intent. It was impossible to destroy them all in a short time. Humph, you're quite capable. The fiery-haired man looked at the Fire Cheelant that was trapped by the 10,000 streaks of spiritual sword intent and snorted coldly. He took a step forward and charged directly in front of Zhuowen. An ant will always be an ant. Die. The fiery-haired man's eyes were cold and emotionless. His fist landed on Zhuowen's chest. Splat! His fist directly pierced through Zhuowen's chest. Then, he discovered in shock that Zhuowen's hands were tightly gripping his right fist. A last-ditch struggle? The fiery-haired man frowned slightly. He wanted to withdraw his right fist, but unexpectedly, Zhuowen held it tightly. Moreover, the fiery-haired man saw Zhuowen's strange smile. He suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Supreme Word Stone, come out! Zhuowen roared furiously. A purple light erupted from his glabella. Then, an ordinary-looking stone flew out from the depths of his glabella and smashed onto the fiery-haired man's head. The fiery-haired man was not prepared at all and was directly hit by the Supreme Word Stone. Then his expression changed and became extremely frightened. Primordial stone? You actually... The fiery-haired man roared furiously. He gathered all the strength in his body and began to resist the power of the Supreme Word Stone. However, Zhuowen held his right fist tightly, making it impossible for him to use his full strength. "Ant, let go of me." The fiery-haired man's expression changed drastically. Terrifying crimson flames erupted from his right fist. He planned to completely burn Zhuowen to ashes. However, what surprised him was that although Zhuowen was much weaker than him, there was some kind of higher-level power circulating in his body. He actually managed to block the attack of his crimson flames. Just like that, the fiery-haired man's body was absorbed by the Supreme Word Stone inch by inch under Zhuowen's mocking gaze. Bang! Chapter 3850. A bitter smile tugged at the corners of Zhuowen's lips. This 3-Fire True Mirrors tool spirit was a little too powerful. In the past, he would first tame the tool spirit before using the Supreme Stone to absorb it. Now, However, he was almost beaten half to death. If he hadn't fought with his life on the line, perhaps even the Supreme Stone wouldn't have been able to subdue the fiery-haired man. When Zhuowen's divine sense returned to his body, he saw that Zhuowen was sitting cross-legged on the stone bed. His face was pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen clutched his head. His divine sense was already powerful enough, but just then it had almost dissipated. Now, his divine sense was extremely weak, and it would probably take a very long time for it to recover. The only thing that comforted him was that the Supreme Stone had completely absorbed the three fire true mirrors tool spirit. He should now have the right to control the three fire true mirror. With this in mind, Zhuowen's gaze fell on the damaged bronze mirror in his hand again. The surface of the bronze mirror was dull and lusterless, as if it were really an ordinary bronze mirror. Zhuowen didn't try to use this bronze mirror. His current condition was too weak, and the rank 4 astral weapon was extremely domineering. If he suffered a backlash from the rank 4 astral weapon's power, he would really regret it. Zhuowen put away the three fire true mirror. He planned to heal the injuries to his divine sense first. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Zhuowen's divine sense had completely recovered. Moreover, in these 3 months, his divine sense had also improved significantly. He was almost half a step into the heaven-crushing 6th transformation stage. However, he lacked a more powerful divine sense visualization image, so he couldn't successfully break through. The ancient sword visualization image only had 5 levels, and it could only cultivate one's divine sense to the heaven-crushing 5th transformation stage at most. He had already cultivated the ancient sword visualization image to the pinnacle and couldn't advance any further. If he wanted to improve his divine sense, he had to obtain a higher-level visualization image. And in these 3 months, Zhuowen's cultivation didn't slow down in the slightest. His shattered god force had already transformed into vast, grand mist god force. Absorbing the chaos energy and refining the evil spirits could increase his cultivation base rapidly, greatly increasing the efficiency of his cultivation. In a short span of 3 months, his cultivation level rose from the initial stage to the middle stage of the Nihility God transformation stage. One had to know that it would take at least a few thousand years for an early-stage Void God Transformation Realm cultivator to reach the mid-stage Void God Transformation Realm. However, Zhuowen was different. He cultivated the primordial Grand Mist technique, and there were almost no bottlenecks. As long as he had enough energy, he would be able to break through quickly. This was the foundation of his existence. It was a pity that the primordial technique he possessed was incomplete. At most, he could cultivate it to the yin-yang transformation stage. Now that his cultivation was gradually approaching the yin-yang transformation, he knew that he had to quickly find the second primordial stone and perfect the primordial technique. After his spirit recovered, Zhuowen took out the three fire true mirror again. He walked out of his cave abode and realized that the doors of the 3 cave abodes were tightly shut. It seemed like they were still in seclusion. Zhuowen had no intention of waking them up. Instead, he left the valley. He arrived at the eastern shore of the Evil King Island. Purplish gold energy circulated around his body, and the evil spirits around him did not dare to approach Zhuowen. Zhuowen looked at the 3 fire true mirror in his hand, and then looked at the boundless sea in front of him. He took a deep breath and began to channel the vast primordial energy into the 3 fire true mirror. He wanted to test the power of the 3 fire true mirror. Buzz! The 3 fire true mirror spewed out a strong blood-red light and let out a deafening and terrifying sound that reverberated in his ears endlessly. Then, Zhuowen realized that the 3 fire true mirror was emitting a terrifying and powerful suction force, and it was rapidly absorbing the energy in his body. F***CK, this suction force is too strong. Zhuowen's face changed drastically. The suction force was too strong, and the vast primordial energy in his body was rapidly being sucked dry. At this speed, the energy in his body would be sucked dry in half an incense stick's worth of time. At that time, he would still be alive. At this point, Zhuowen was no longer able to control his own body. The suction force was so strong that it had exceeded his strength. Unable to pull himself out, he could only watch helplessly as the three fires' true mirror greedily absorbed his grand mist god force like a vampire. After an unknown period of time, Zhuowen's consciousness was about to blur, and the suction force of the three-fire true mirror finally stopped. Zhuowen forced himself to open his eyes. He could vaguely sense a vast, towering, and terrifying pressure not far in front of him. The three-fire true mirror in his hand spewed out powerful blood-red flames. These flames soared into the sky, and they began to entangle with each other. The blood-red flames were too vigorous. They soared into the sky and dyed the sky red. If one looked at it from afar, they would see that in the sky above the Evil King Island, there was an endless sea of blood-red flames beside the black fog that never dissipated. This blood-red flame was extremely vigorous, and it was enough to compete with the black fog above the Evil King Island. Although the blood-red flames area was smaller than the black fog, it was not far off. Fortunately, the Evil King Island was very remote, and there were few people around. Otherwise, if it was seen by cultivators, they would definitely guess that there was some kind of strange treasure here, and it would attract unnecessary trouble. The endless blood-red flames continued to entangle with each other. Then, Zhuowen saw that these blood-red flames began to condense at a certain point in the middle. In the end, he realized that the blood-red flames had condensed into a towering blood-red mountain. It was a mountain that burned with a strange blood-red flame. Zhuowen was not unfamiliar with this mountain, because this blood-red mountain was exactly the same as the one he saw in the three-fire True Mirrors artifact spirit space. A suffocating and terrifying pressure was released from the blood-red mountain, and it spread across the entire Evil King Island. Originally, the countless evil spirits that were wandering around Evil King Island all stopped when they felt this terrifying pressure. Then, they froze on the spot and shivered. Under this pressure, they felt the shadow of death. Zhuowen supported his body with difficulty. With a thought, the blood-red mountain fell into the sea in the distance. Rumble! Huge waves rose up from the sea in the distance, and then countless white smoke was formed by evaporation, floating up in a spiral form. Then, an unprecedented tsunami appeared in the sea, and many creatures in the sea were burned to ashes by the terrifying temperature. Zhuowen saw that with the Evil King Island as the center, the sea within a range of trillions of miles was deeply affected. The white smoke that evaporated enveloped the surface of the sea, as if it was in a fog. Zhuowen could acutely feel that the sea level had dropped by more than 10 meters. He was shocked. The sea was extremely vast, but the entire sea level had dropped by more than 10 meters after just one hit from the blood-red mountain. What a terrifying concept. Chapter 3851. F***CK, what's going on? Why is there white fog everywhere? And the entire Evil King Island shook just now. The slovenly Taoist brought Dokyo and Daokong over and stopped not far behind Zhuowen. They were shocked to see what was happening around Evil King Island. Daowen, this commotion isn't caused by you, right? The slovenly Taoist's gaze landed on Zhuowen as he asked in a daze. Zhuowen said embarrassedly, I was testing the power of the three-fire True Mirror just now and accidentally caused such a commotion. The slovenly Taoist was relieved to hear this. Zhuowen had told them about the three-fire True Mirror. It was a genuine rank 4 astral weapon, and its power was unparalleled. The slovenly Taoist and the others felt that it was only natural for it to cause such a commotion. You scared me to death. I thought it was your own power that caused it. The slovenly Taoist touched his chest and said, Sect leader, junior brothers, I might have to make a trip to the middle state. Zhuowen suddenly said, Why are you going to the middle state? The slovenly Taoist asked curiously, My divine soul has reached a bottleneck, and I need a higher level visualization image. I want to see if I can buy the visualization image I want in the middle state. Zhuowen said in a low voice. The slovenly Taoist priest fell silent. When he heard that, Daowen, I've let you down this time. You joined the Hong sect, but you can't even cultivate a higher level visualization image. You have to go to the middle state to find one yourself, the slovenly Taoist said with a trace of guilt on his face. Zhuowen smiled and shook his head. Sect leader, you don't have to feel guilty. Joining the Hong sect was my own decision, and I don't regret it. After all, the Heaven and Earth Universal Sutra is much more precious than many other techniques. I should be more grateful to you for giving it to me so selflessly. The slovenly Taoist was relieved. He was happy that Zhuowen knew how to repay his kindness. You've offended the Hong martial divine sect, and even snatched the 3-fire true mirror from the World Auction House. When you reach the central region, you must be careful. The sloppy Taoist warned. Senior brother, you're blessed with good fortune. Your trip to the central continent will definitely be smooth sailing. When the time comes, don't forget to bring me and Dokyo some fun things. There's nothing on this evil King Island. It's simply too boring. Dao Kong acted like an old man and asked for things without any hesitation. Dokyo, on the other hand, was stammering. His face was flushed red, and he couldn't say a single word. Dao Kong patted Dokyo's shoulder and laughed. Senior brother, Dokyo and I have the same idea. He also wants something fun. Dokyo's face was flushed red, but he still looked at Zhuowen and said, Senior brother, be careful on the way. Zhuowen rubbed Dao Kong and Dokyo's heads and said, Don't worry. I, your senior brother, am very strong. There won't be any danger in the central region. Don't worry. When I return, I'll bring you some good things. After saying that, Zhuowen looked at the slovenly Taoist and smiled. Then he took out the divine ship and left the evil King Island. Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the deck of the divine ship. After handing over the control of the divine ship to Xiao He, he took out a scroll from the outside world. He looked at the scroll in front of him with a burning gaze. This scroll was the geographical map of the Hushu region that he had bought from the World Auction House at a high price. When Yu Sha had taken out this geographical map, she had unfolded a corner. In that corner, he saw a geographical shape that was similar to the map fragment in his divine soul. Zhuowen slowly opened the geographical map, unfolded it completely, and spread it on the ground. When the scroll was fully unfolded, it was 10 meters long. Moreover, in this 10-meter space, the geographical shape inside was like a real place. It was as if he was looking down on the vast land from the sky. Zhuowen browsed through it, and his gaze finally locked onto a place in the middle of the geographical map. His gaze became more and more serious. It's actually hidden here, Zhuowen muttered to himself, but his expression did not look good. In the middle of the geographical map, there was a mountain peak drawn. This mountain peak was called the Fallen Star Mountain. In the Fallen Star Mountain, there was a place called the Absolute Beginning Cave. The second primordial stone was hidden in the Absolute Beginning Cave. The reason why Zhuowen's expression changed so much was because the Fallen Star Mountain was not simple. It was a famous and terrifying place in the Hushu region. According to legend, creatures of the primordial star system had fallen on this mountain. Later on, This mountain became a taboo. This was where the name Fallen Star Mountain came from. The stars referred to creatures of the primordial star system. Moreover, the Fallen Star Mountain was extremely dangerous. Even great carefree realm experts were not absolutely safe in the Fallen Star Mountain. Although Zhuowen was quite confident in himself, it was still too difficult for him to enter the Fallen Star Mountain with his current cultivation. Unless he cultivated the primordial technique to the yin-yang transformation, he might have some confidence. There's no need to think about the Fallen Star Mountain for now. Let's enter the Hongwu Shengzhen first. Zhuowen muttered to himself. His Grand Mist movement technique and Grand Mist soldier art still had a lot of room for improvement. After he entered the Hongwu Shengzhen, and his strength improved enough, he would head to the Fallen Star Mountain, enter the Absolute Beginning Cave, and search for the second primordial stone. 3 days later, Zhuowen arrived at the Central Continent's giant city. Before he entered the city, he had already changed his appearance to that of a harmless young man. Even his aura was completely different. After he entered the Central Continent, the first thing he saw was the wanted posters floating in every street corner of the Central Continent. The main character on the wanted posters was naturally Zhuowen, and the one who issued the wanted posters was naturally the Hongwu Divine Sect. Moreover, other than Zhuowen, he also saw the portraits of the slovenly Taoist Dao Kong and Dokyo on the wanted posters. Zhuowen shook his head. This Hongwu Divine Sect was indeed like a lingering spirit. They really persevered in their pursuit of him. Even the slovenly Taoist and the other two from the Hong sect were wanted as well. Fortunately, we escaped quickly in the valley. The slovenly Taoist's image is too obvious. Sikong Chiu will definitely recognize him. At that time, Sikong Chiu might really chase after us. Zhuowen muttered to himself. Thinking about the slovenly Taoist being wanted, he was glad that he made the prompt decision to leave after the slovenly Taoist refined Prado. Sikong Chiu was a God domain transformation expert. If she reacted and chased after them, how could they still be alive? Other than that, he also noticed that the Central Continent was filled with spies of the Hongwu Divine Sect. If he didn't change his appearance and swaggered into the Central Continent, the Hongwu Divine Sect would have immediately dispatched experts to capture him. While he was casually strolling around the Central Continent, he noticed that most of the people around him were discussing the Heavenly Auction House. It was said that not long after the Rank 4 astral weapon was auctioned off, the entire auction house was destroyed by the 8 Gods Zhan sect Master Feng Yunfei. Chapter 3852. Zhuowen listened to the discussions around him, and his heart was as clear as a mirror. Back in the valley, although Yun Kanglin had been beaten to the brink of death by Prado, she had not died yet. He felt that Yun Kanglin's death might have something to do with the few people present at that time. Their goal was probably to shift all the blame onto the World Auction House. As Zhuowen walked on the streets of Middle Ground, he silently thought about how to obtain a high-level visualization image. Have you guys heard about the Divine Firmament Soul Sect? Yes, I did. I really didn't expect that the Divine Firmament Soul Sect would be willing to open their visualization building to the public. That place contains all kinds of the highest quality visualization images in Middle Ground. At that moment, Zhuowen passed by a restaurant. The conversation between two cultivators inside attracted Zhuowen's attention. Zhuowen was no stranger to the Divine Firmament Soul Sect. After joining the Hong sect, he had already figured out the geography of Middle Ground and the various factions. This Divine Firmament Soul Sect was the only sect among the top 10 factions in Middle Ground that focused on cultivating the soul. They viewed the soul as the most supreme thing, a treasure that surpassed the physical body. The cultivators of this sect devoted most of their energy to the cultivation of their souls. It was precisely because of this principle of the Divine Firmament Soul sect that countless powerful cultivators in the sect collected all kinds of visualization images from all over the place. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to say that the Divine Firmament Soul sect was the sect with the most abundant visualization images in Middle Ground. And in the Divine Firmament Soul sect, the pavilion where all kinds of visualization images were stored was the Visualization Building. It included almost all the visualization images that the Divine Firmament Soul sect had collected over the countless years. Back then, before Zhuowen came to Middle Ground, he had also considered the Divine Firmament Soul sect's Visualization Building. However, the Visualization Building was not open to the public. It was only open to the sect's disciples. Unless Zhuowen attacked the Divine Firmament Soul sect and snatched the visualization image. As one of the top 10 factions in Middle Ground, the Divine Firmament Soul sect's foundation could be said to be very deep. Wouldn't Zhuowen be courting death if he attacked them alone? Furthermore, he did not have any enmity with the Divine Firmament Soul sect. He could not possibly attack them just because he wanted their Earth visualization diagram. But now, the Divine Firmament Soul sect had actually opened the Visualization Building to the public, which surprised Zhuowen. Didn't this mean that even if he wasn't a disciple of the Divine Firmament Soul sect, he was still qualified to enter the Visualization Tower to view the visualization diagrams? Thinking of this, Zhuowen straightforwardly entered the restaurant next door and went to the private room where the two cultivators were still chatting. The two cultivators who were originally chatting enthusiastically stopped talking when they saw Zhuowen approaching. They looked at Zhuowen cautiously. "Fellow Taoists, I am Daowen." Zhuowen introduced himself with a smile, and then said to the waiter at the side, "Waiter, give me 3 jugs of 10,000-year nectar." "All right, 3 pots of 10,000-year-old nectar." Hearing this, the waiter beamed with joy and quickly left. 10,000-year nectar was their restaurant's best immortal wine, so the price was naturally not cheap. "If the two of you don't mind, can you let me sit in this seat? And those 3 pots of 10,000-year-old nectar will be my treat," Zhuowen said generously. Their eyes lit up as they thought to themselves that this person was really generous. They had never met before, but he actually treated them to 10,000-year-old nectar without saying anything, and their initial wariness towards Zhuowen gradually faded. "Brother Daowen is really forthright. I am Chun-Sen, and he is my close friend Lu Yin." Chun-Sen had a slender figure and was very thin. He had an elegant temperament. On the other hand, Chun-Sen's close friend Lu Yin was tall and burly. When the two of them sat together, the visual contrast was huge. When Chun-Sen introduced him, Lu Yin cupped his hands towards Zhuowen and did not say a word. Zhuowen could tell that Lu Yin did not speak much and followed Chun-Sen's lead, so he did not mind. At this moment, the waiter had already served the 3 pots of 10,000-year-old nectar. Zhuowen personally poured wine for the two of them. "Just now, I heard the two of you talking about the Divine Firmament Soul sect's Visualization Building opening to the public. I was very curious. Can the two of you tell me in detail?" Zhuowen said with a smile. After Chun-Sen and Lu Yin drank the wine in their cups in one gulp, they both revealed intoxicated expressions. Chun-Sen said, rather enthusiastically, "Brother Daowen, you don't even know this? You should have just arrived in Middle Ground, right?" Zhuowen smiled and said, "Yes, I just entered the city today. As I have been fascinated by the Divine Firmament Soul sect's Visualization Building for a long time, I was very curious when I heard the two of you talking about this." Actually, it's like this. Chun-Sen didn't try to hide anything. Instead, he told her everything about the Divine Firmament Soul sect. It turned out that the reason why the Divine Firmament Soul sect opened the visualization building to the public was all because of the Divine Firmament Soul sect master's son, Qin Ruebua. Qin Ruebua was a rare genius of the Divine Firmament Soul sect's younger generation. Especially in the aspect of the soul, Qin Ruebua's talent was even more outstanding than the Divine Firmament Soul sect's ancestors. In just a short 1,000 years, he had cultivated the Divine Firmament Soul sect's #1 visualization image, the demonic origin demonic painting, to lesser mastery. The demonic origin demonic painting was extremely famous in Middle Ground. It was said to be the most powerful visualization image below the Great Carefree Realm. If one could cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to perfection, their soul would be so powerful that it would be almost invincible below the Great Carefree Realm. However, the Divine Firmament Soul sect's demonic origin demonic art was very difficult to cultivate. The strongest sect master of the Divine Firmament Soul sect had only managed to cultivate it to the greater mastery stage. No one had ever cultivated it to the greater mastery stage. However, Qin Ruebua had suddenly appeared out of nowhere and cultivated the demonic origin demonic painting to greater mastery in just a short 1,000 years. This was definitely a record in the Divine Firmament Soul sect. This was because the Divine Firmament Soul sect's strongest sect master had taken 10,000 years to cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to greater mastery. However, Qin Ruebua had shortened the time by 10 times. All the cultivators in the Divine Firmament Soul sect were full of expectations. They believed that Qin Ruebua would create history in the Divine Firmament Soul sect and cultivate the demonic origin demonic painting to an unprecedented level of perfection, leading the Divine Firmament Soul sect to a new height. And this time, the visualization building was open to the public, all because of Qin Ruebua. Qin Ruebua had set up an arena outside the Divine Firmament Soul sect and let out a bold statement, inviting all the young people in Middle Ground to come and compete with him in the soul. If anyone could defeat him, they would be qualified to enter the Divine Firmament Soul sect's visualization building to study for 10 days. Hearing this, Zhuowen finally understood the cause and effect of the visualization buildings opening to the public, and he was a little interested in Qin Ruebua. Chapter 38:53. Zhuowen bade farewell to Chunsen and Lu Yin and left the restaurant. He took out his divine ship and headed straight for the Divine Firmament Soul sect. The Divine Firmament Soul sect was located in the eastern part of Middle Ground and occupied a huge mountain range. At this moment, in front of the Divine Firmament Soul sect's lofty mountain gate, there was a huge arena. Below the arena, there was a crowd of people bustling about. It was very lively, and on the arena, a young man in white stood proudly with his hands crossed over his chest. He stood silently in the center of the arena, with his eyes slightly closed, and on the pure white steps behind the arena stood 3 old men in long robes. Powerful auras surged from their bodies. This aura soared up and fell into the sky, transforming into large hands that were holding up a huge pavilion. Zhuowen's attention was immediately attracted by the pavilion. This was because on the signboard above the pavilion's entrance, 3 large words were written in calligraphy: Visualization Building. This is the visualization building. Zhuowen's gaze was fixed on the building floating in midair. He knew that there were many visualization diagrams hidden in this building. As long as he could enter the visualization building, he could use the great word stone to fuse with all the visualization diagrams inside and create a powerful visualization diagram cultivation technique that belonged to him alone. Zhuowen's arrival did not attract anyone's attention. Even the young man standing in the center of the arena did not open his eyes to look at Zhuowen. It's said that the demonic essence demonic diagram is especially evil. Cultivators who cultivate this visualization diagram have extremely dense demonic nature in their souls, and their power is even more powerful. If Chin Ruebo really cultivates this visualization diagram to greater mastery, I feel that almost no one in the younger generation of Middle Ground will be his match. Not far from Zhuowen, there were cultivators discussing animatedly. They felt that this Chin Ruebo was an extremely terrifying and powerful genius who did not dare to enter the arena. Suddenly, Chin Ruebo, who was standing in the middle of the arena, suddenly opened his eyes, and a sharp, cold light burst forth from his eyes. What? I've already waited on the arena for more than an hour. Since you call yourselves the geniuses of the younger generation, don't tell me you don't even have the guts to challenge me? Chin Ruebo spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but strangely, it was like a great bell that resounded in everyone's ears. Below the arena, the crowd was instantly stirred up and clamored with excitement. After a brief hubbub, a figure swept out from the crowd, leaped up, and landed on the ring. This was an extremely handsome young man. He was dressed in a long golden robe, and his body was filled with a noble aura. I am Tang Si from the True Fire Tower. Chin Ruebo, you said that if I win the competition with you, can I really enter the Divine Firmament Soul Sex Visualization Tower? Asked the youth with a burning gaze. It's actually Tang Si from the Primordial Fire Tower. He's the strongest genius of the younger generation in the Primordial Fire Tower. It's said that his cultivation has already reached the early stage of the yin-yang transformation. His strength can't be underestimated. In the arena, many of the spectators immediately recognized the identity of the golden-robed young man, and there was an uproar. My words may be false, but this token can't be false. If you defeat me, this token is yours. Chin Ruebo took out a shiny silver token and waved it in front of Tang Si. Visualization Tower's door, token? Tang Si's pupils constricted, but his heart burned even more fiercely. The so-called Visualization Tower's door token was actually the key to enter the Visualization Tower. As long as one had this door token, even if one wasn't a disciple of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect, they would still have the qualifications to enter the Visualization Tower. In that case, please enlighten me. Tang Si took a deep breath and cupped his fists at Chin Ruebo. A powerful force began to surge in his body. He was determined to obtain this door token, so he planned to end the battle quickly and get rid of Chin Ruebo as soon as possible. Boom! Tang Si took a step forward. Instantly, the surrounding air rose at an unimaginable speed. The entire arena seemed to be in a furnace. Tang Si's entire body was burning with blazing flames. His figure flashed like lightning and appeared in front of Chin Ruebo in the blink of an eye. Fire God's profundity. Tang Si grinned. Before he arrived, his fist arrived first. Blazing flames burned fiercely and carried an unparalleled fist aura as it blasted toward Chin Ruebo's face. A faint smile appeared on Chin Ruebo's lips. He stood motionless on the spot, as if he didn't feel Tang Si's punch. Do you want to die? Tang Si narrowed his eyes, but his fist aura showed no signs of weakening. Instead, it became even stronger. The terrifying flames were like erupting lava as they poured down on Chin Ruebo's body. Whoosh! The flames engulfed Chin Ruebo, and he was completely engulfed by the flames. Thud! Tang Si landed on the ground and shook his head. I really don't know what you're thinking. You actually didn't dodge my attack. Don't blame me if you die. Ha ha! Tang Si, you think you can kill me with this level of strength? Wishful thinking. A sarcastic voice rang out. Tang Si's expression changed drastically as he suddenly raised his head and looked up. He saw Chin Ruebo with a ferocious smile on his face as he fell down like a meteor directly facing Tang Si. A strange black chi gushed out from between Chin Ruebo's eyebrows and formed a black spear. He held it in his hand and stabbed it toward Tang Si's vitals. All the hair on Tang Si's body stood on end as a chill ran from his spine to his head. He felt the threat of death. Tang Si shouted. Blazing flames burst out from his body. The flames were golden, and when they surged out, they emitted a metallic sound. It was as if they were not flames, but some kind of metal. Block. Tang Si retreated as the golden flames formed a ring in front of him and spun rapidly. Clang! The black spear swept over in an instant and landed on the golden flames. A crisp metallic sound rang out. Tang Si's body trembled as he retreated even faster. Cherry red blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Qin Ruabe was sneered. Holding the spear with his right hand, he took a mysterious step and stopped. His left hand suddenly struck the end of the spear. He only said the word break, and his body stopped in place. A terrifying gale swept up from his body, and a vast and terrifying power created a black spear from his left hand. Puchi, Tang Si's expression changed drastically as the golden flames in front of him shattered into countless fine powder. The black spear whistled through the air as it pierced through his shoulder blade. It carried him through the air and finally nailed him to a cliff behind him. Plop! The black spear slowly turned into a black chi and dissipated. Tang Si, who was hanging on the cliff, fell to the ground and spat out another mouthful of blood. He struggled to stand up. Qin Ruabe, thank you for showing mercy. Tang Si's expression was ugly. He cupped his fists at Qin Ruabe and then clutched the terrifying wound on his chest. In the crowd, 2 disciples of the true fire tower went up to support Tang Si. Chapter 38:54. Ah! Suddenly, Tang Si screamed and raised his head. Everyone looked over and was horrified to find that Tang Si was bleeding from his 7 orifices and his entire body was twitching. In the end, Tang Si exploded into a cloud of blood mist. In this cloud of blood mist, a very inconspicuous black chi surged out and swept into the arena, entering Qin Ruabe's body. As for the 2 primordial fire tower disciples who were supporting Tang Si, they did not even have the chance to scream before they were turned into ashes by the explosion. Below the arena, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. After Tang Si self-exploded, the black chi that surged out of his body was not noticed by others, but he did. Is this the power of the demonic chi-demonic diagram? Zhuowen muttered in a low voice as his eyes shone brightly. It had to be said that the demonic chi-demonic diagram was indeed very powerful. It was much more powerful than the visualization diagram that he cultivated. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that Qin Ruabe's strength was actually around the early stage of the yin-yang change realm and was not much stronger than Tang Si. However, Qin Ruabe's strength lay in the fact that his spirit had become extremely powerful and terrifying under the refinement of the demonic chi-demonic diagram. If one could not resist the evil corrosion in Qin Ruabe's spirit, even if one was stronger than Qin Ruabe, they would probably be defeated by him. Only when one's spirit was on par with Qin Ruabe would one be qualified to fight him head-on. Following that, many cultivators below the arena went up to challenge him. Unfortunately, they all returned empty-handed. Moreover, the young talents who were defeated by Qin Ruabe all died in the arena in the end. Below the arena, everyone was horrified. They felt that Qin Ruabe was too evil. He set up the arena and said that it was a spar, but after the battle, he actually went for the kill. Originally, many cultivators who were eager to give it a try gave up. They were not confident that they could survive under Qin Ruabe's hands. Naturally, they would not die for nothing. Qin Ruabe glanced around and saw that no one came up. A mocking smile appeared on his face. Is there no one else in the Central Plains? You all claim to be geniuses of the younger generation, but you don't even dare to challenge me. What right do you have to call yourself geniuses? Qin Ruebwa mocked. Everyone below the arena looked at Qin Ruebwa angrily. This guy actually started a group mockery mode and made fun of all of them. Qin Ruebwa, let me test you. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice came from below the arena. Then, the crowd slowly parted to form a path, and a woman wearing a veil slowly walked over. This woman had a slender figure, and the exposed part of her skin was even more delicate and fair, as white and flawless as snow. She is Yang Yenyu of the Eight Gods Zhan sect. I didn't expect her to come as well. Among the younger generation of the Central State, she can be ranked in the top 3 geniuses. Yang Yenyu has been famous for a long time and has a very high prestige among the younger generation. But this Qin Ruebwa has just appeared out of nowhere. One has been famous for a long time, and the other has risen against the trend. I wonder who will be stronger. 2. Zhuowen's gaze also landed on Yang Yenyu. His gaze was solemn. In his divine sense, Yang Yenyu's cultivation was about the same as Tang Si and Qin Ruebwa, but the aura she exuded gave him a sense of danger. Without a doubt, this Yang Yenyu was a much stronger powerhouse than Tang Si. Qin Ruebwa also finally noticed Yang Yenyu. He licked his lips and revealed a cold smile as he said, I really didn't expect that even senior apprentice Sister Yang came too. Yang Yenyu landed on the arena leisurely and said with a light smile, it just so happens that I'm very interested in the visualization tower, so I came over to give it a try. I hope that junior apprentice brother Qin can show mercy. Qin Ruebwa grinned and said, Senior apprentice Sister Yang, everything is negotiable. With senior apprentice Sister Yang's identity and status, after I defeat you, I won't kill you. Instead, I'll take good care of you. Yang Yenyu's expression changed slightly, and she shouted coldly, You're really impudent. As soon as Yang Yenyu said these words, her figure vanished on the spot like a ghost. On the arena, only a white shadow flashed past. Qin Ruebwa, who stood at the center of the arena, gave a muffled groan and retreated repeatedly, all the way until he retreated to the edge of the arena. The white shadow slowly landed at the center of the arena. Yang Yenyu looked at Qin Ruebwa indifferently and said, Junior apprentice brother Qin, you're a rising star. Your natural talent is indeed not bad, but this doesn't mean that you have the qualifications to be on equal footing with me. You better change the way you speak to me. Otherwise, I might not be able to control the strength of my attacks. Qin Ruebwa wiped away the bloodstains at the corners of his mouth, but he laughed loudly and said, Senior apprentice Sister Yang, you're really gentle. You hit me so comfortably. Next, it's my turn to make you feel comfortable. Yang Yenyu's beautiful eyes were ghastly cold, and she shouted coldly, You're simply impudent. Don't blame me for being merciless. As she spoke, Yang Yenyu attacked again. Her speed was even faster than before. The crowd couldn't even see Yang Yenyu's figure. They only saw an illusory white shadow. Qin Ruebwa sneered. A lot of black mist burst out from between his eyebrows and covered his entire body, turning into an incomparably hard black armor. Only his 2 eyes were left outside. Bang! Yang Yenyu's attacks came one after another, bombarding Qin Ruebwa's body. But this time, Qin Ruebwa was as still as a mountain. The black armor around him kept squirming, resisting Yang Yenyu's attacks. Bang, bang, bang. Yang Yenyu's speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Qin Ruebwa was hit dozens of times. But every attack was blocked by the black armor around Qin Ruebwa's body. I've got you. When Yang Yenyu attacked again, Qin Ruebwa saw the opportunity and grabbed one of Yang Yenyu's arms. Yang Yenyu's pretty face changed slightly. She burst out with all the strength in her body, trying to break free from Qin Ruibua's restraint. Unfortunately, ever since Qin Ruibua's body was covered with this strange armor, he was extremely resistant to attacks. Yang Yenyu's attacks could only make Qin Ruibua let out a muffled groan and didn't cause any serious injuries. Qin Ruibua pulled Yang Yenyu with his right hand and formed a fist with his left hand, fiercely punching toward Yang Yenyu's chest and abdomen. Yang Yenyu gritted her teeth. She knew that she could only fight Qin Ruibua head-on now. Therefore, Yang Yenyu's right hand formed a palm and spewed out white energy to meet Qin Ruibua's attack. Boom! The two fists collided, and there was an explosive sound. Yang Yenyu's beautiful eyes changed drastically. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Sweat appeared on her white forehead, and there was a look of pain in her eyes. Qin Ruibua also let out a muffled groan, but he didn't give up. He laughed loudly and punched at Yang Yenyu, almost as if he didn't care about his life. Yang Yenyu was helpless. She could only passively receive Qin Ruibua's terrifying punches. Every time she blocked them, her injuries would become more serious. Although Qin Ruibua also suffered a lot of injuries, the black armor around his body was too strange. It helped him offset most of the attacks. In this battle of attrition, Qin Ruibua undoubtedly had the upper hand. Chapter 38:55. Yang Yenyu stood up with difficulty. Her veil and the clothes on her chest were already dyed bright red. That was her blood. Junior apprentice brother Qin is indeed mighty and unstoppable. Yenyu concedes defeat. Yang Yenyu cupped her fists at Qin Ruibua and left with the help of two powerhouses from the Eight Gods Zhan sect. A trace of ferocity flashed across Qin Ruibua's eyes, but he was quite shocked in his heart. The divine soul that he cultivated from the demonic vitality, demonic diagram, carried a terrifying demonic qi. Generally, cultivators who were eroded by this demonic qi could easily self-explode and die. Logically speaking, Yang Yenyu had suffered so many attacks from him. The demonic qi had already entered her body seriously, but she was not affected much. It seemed that the top geniuses of the central state could not be underestimated. Qin Ruibua knew that he could defeat Yang Yenyu, but he might not be able to kill her. Who else wants to come up? Demonic qi surged around Qin Ruibua, forcibly suppressing the injuries in his body. His gaze swept across the numerous cultivators below the ring coldly. Qin Ruibua was very proud. In his eyes, Yang Yenyu should be the strongest genius among these people. Even such a powerful genius was defeated in his hands. The other opponents were all clay chickens and pottery dogs to him. Even if he continued to fight with injuries, no one could shake him. Sure enough, once he said this, the people below the ring were silent like cicadas in winter. No one answered. Qin Ruibua revealed a disdainful smile at the corners of his mouth. He knew that everyone below the ring was already scared out of their wits. No one would come up to challenge again. In the battle just now, you're already injured. If you continue to fight, can you bear it? Suddenly, below the ring, a voice without ripples sounded out and spread up and down the entire ring. As soon as this remark came out, everyone's gaze involuntarily gathered on a young man who was seated at the back. Qin Ruibua's gaze turned slightly serious. He looked at that young man coldly and said proudly, "Other than a genius like Yang Yenyu, you people really don't need me to use my full strength. Whether I'm injured or not has no effect on the result of the battle at all." Below the ring, everyone glared at him angrily. Qin Ruibua's contemptuous attitude made them very displeased. "Good. Since that's the case, then I'll challenge you." The youth's eyes were burning as he strode towards the ring. Finally, he leapt onto the edge of the ring. His back was straight as he calmly looked at Qin Ruebwa. Qin Ruebwa sized up the youth from head to toe. Suddenly, he laughed loudly and said, "One must know one's limits. A hollow god transformation stage. Ant like you dares to compete with me? Get out of my sight." Qin Ruebwa's gaze grew even more disdainful. Although he was bloodthirsty, he had no interest in fighting against cultivators whose cultivation bases were so much lower than his. In fact, he couldn't even be bothered to attack. Is there something wrong with this guy's head? A middle-stage void god transformation cultivator actually dared to challenge Qin Ruebwa. Didn't he see that Qin Ruebwa had defeated a yin-yang transformation genius like Yang Yanyu? He actually dares to challenge Qin Ruebwa. Humph, he's obviously looking to die. Even with my peak 5 phases transformation, I wouldn't dare to fight with Qin Ruebwa. This bastard. Below the arena, everyone shook their heads, feeling that this young man was really courting death. This young man was none other than Zhuowen, who had changed his appearance. Qin Ruebwa was indeed powerful. However, Zhuowen had already discovered Qin Ruebwa's weakness after watching several matches. Qin Ruebwa's strength was actually very average. He was not even as strong as an early-stage yin-yang transformation cultivator. At most, he was at the peak of the 5 elements transformation stage. Qin Ruebwa's main reliance was his divine soul. After cultivating the demonic Qi transform demon diagram, Qin Ruebwa's divine soul carried a terrifying demonic nature. Many cultivators could easily be affected by his divine soul, causing their strength to drop by a large margin. Take the battle between Yang Yanyu and Qin Ruebwa as an example. If one looked at it superficially, Yang Yanyu was being suppressed. However, if one looked closely, it was actually Yang Yanyu who was getting weaker and weaker as she fought with Qin Ruebwa. In the end, Qin Ruebwa found a flaw and defeated her. As long as one could resist the demonic nature of Qin Ruebwa's soul, Qin Ruebwa's strength was only SOSO. Zhuowen was the least afraid of soul attacks. This was because his soul had merged with the primordial stone. Soul attacks had no effect on him at all. Get out. I think you're afraid. Aren't you? Afraid that you'll be defeated by someone with a lower cultivation level and become the laughingstock of the central state. Zhuowen said sarcastically. Qin Ruebwa's face suddenly became unfriendly. He looked coldly at Zhuowen and said, "You're really bold. How dare you provoke me?" The corners of Zhuowen's mouth held a trace of a smile, and he didn't say anything else, but silently looked at Qin Ruebwa. "If that's the case, I'll kill you in one move, you ant." Qin Ruebwa was infuriated by Zhuowen. Killing intent burst out from his eyes. Then he stomped his right foot, and a powerful aura surged out and poured down. It was as if the gravity in the surroundings had increased explosively. The entire arena shook violently. Bang! There was a thunderous explosion. Qin Ruebwa turned into an illusory shadow and appeared in front of Zhuowen in the blink of an eye. Qin Ruebwa did not take Zhuowen seriously at all. Therefore, he did not even release the power of his soul. He only attacked Zhuowen with his cultivation level. In his opinion, even if he did not use the power of the demonic energy demonic diagram, this ant in the empty god transformation stage was far from his match. Zhuowen laughed. Qin Ruebwa had suffered serious internal injuries in the battle with Yang Yanyu. His strength had been greatly reduced. Now, he was still so arrogant in front of him. He was simply courting death. Zhuowen did not hold back. He stomped his right foot forward, and a terrifying power surged from the bottom of his foot. Then, empty gods appeared one after another around his body. As for his strength, it was also increasing by the hundreds and thousands. The moment the 9th empty god appeared, countless cracks appeared in the arena before it exploded with a loud bang. At that moment, Qin Ruebwa had already arrived in front of Zhuowen. His right fist came as expected, but his face was full of astonishment. Boom! Zhuowen punched out with all the strength he had accumulated in his life, pouring out all of it. Qin Ruibua's pupils shrank to the extreme. His strength was completely suppressed. Then, an even stronger power poured into his body from his right fist. He tried his best to resist this power. However, he soon realized that his broken god power could not withstand this power. This power was of a very high level. It completely suppressed his broken god power. Even if he used the yin-yang power that was unique to the yin-yang transformation, he was still suppressed. He was really shocked. What kind of power was in this guy's body? Why was it so strange? Crack! The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Then Qin Ruibua could only watch as his right arm was crushed, and Zhuowen's unparalleled fist landed on his chest. Uffed! Qin Ruibua spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew out in a sorry state and landed heavily in the ruins of the arena. Chapter 38:56. Below the arena, everyone was dumbfounded as they stared blankly at the scene. None of them had expected that the outcome of this arena battle would actually be like this. Qin Ruibua, who was originally incomparably powerful, was defeated by this empty god transformation newbie with a single punch. Moreover, they also realized that this newcomer had 9 virtual gods. This was simply a shocking news. What's wrong with this newbie? He actually has 9 empty gods. Is he trying to defy the heavens? This is also the first time I've seen a nihility god transformation expert with 9 nihility gods. However, this nihility god transformation newbie is really strong. Even if Qin Ruibua didn't use his divine soul, he's still at the yin-yang transformation stage. In such a head-on clash, Qin Ruibua lost in one move. This is unbelievable. Around the arena, there was a flurry of discussion as they looked at Zhuowen in amazement. They were all guessing which famous sect this person came from. On the steps in front of the mountain gate, the 2 old men's faces turned ugly when they saw that Qin Ruibua was defeated in one move. At the same time, they were also shocked by the 9 empty gods that Zhuowen released. After all, they were experts of the older generation and had seen many things. They knew what 9 empty gods meant. The 2 old men exchanged glances and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Bang! Suddenly, in the ruins of the arena, sand and stones flew and exploded. Qin Ruibua was like an angry beast as he rushed out of the ruins. His eyes were red as he stared at Zhuowen. His right hand was completely pulverized, leaving only his broken upper arm. It was still hanging on his shoulder, and blood dripped down. It sounded particularly horrifying. However, Qin Ruibua was at the yin-yang transformation after all. His self-healing ability was naturally not weak. At this moment, his broken arm was slowly recovering. A blazing black aura surged from between Qin Ruibua's eyebrows. It rolled over and surrounded his body, looking very ferocious and terrifying. Qin Ruibua's killing intent had reached an extremely terrifying level. This time, he had lost a lot of face. He was actually defeated by an empty god transformation cultivator. This time, he would really become the laughingstock of Middle State. If he did not kill this kid, he would not be able to vent his anger. Whoosh! The 2 old men who were originally standing on the steps leaped down from the arena and blocked Qin Ruibua, who was about to make a move. Elders, what is the meaning of this? One of the tall and thin old men said in a low voice, Ruibua, you've lost this time. If you still make a move, wouldn't that be breaking the rules? Qin Ruibua simply couldn't control the anger in his heart. He growled, I won't allow myself to be defeated by an ant. I must take revenge. The tall and skinny old man sighed and sent a message to Qin Ruibo. Qin Ruibo, who was originally furious, suddenly revealed a look of surprise. Then he took another look at Zhuowen and actually silently withdrew his aura. You've won this time. This is the door plate of the visualization tower. Take it. Qin Ruibo took out the token and tossed it to Zhuowen before leaving the arena. He had been defeated by someone of a higher cultivation level than him. It was simply too humiliating. How could he continue to stay here? Zhuowen received the token and looked at Qin Ruibo's departing figure with some bafflement. Just now, this fellow still had an aggressive appearance. He even thought that he still wanted to fight with Qin Ruibo. However, those two elders sent a few voice transmissions to him. Qin Ruibo's anger was suppressed, and he decisively admitted defeat. Zhuowen was rather curious about what exactly that elder said to Qin Ruibo. This young master is really skilled. I still haven't asked for young master's great name. The tall and skinny old man walked up and said to Zhuowen rather enthusiastically. Zhuowen actually didn't quite understand what was going on. He just nodded and replied, I'm called Daowon. Young master, you shouldn't be from the central continent, right? The tall and skinny old man asked with a grin. Zhuowen's gaze immediately revealed a vigilant look. He thought for a moment and said, I'm indeed not from the central continent. But, senior, why are you asking this? To be more precise, Zhuowen wasn't from the 100 territories outside the world. He was a being from the lower dimensions that had ascended. After the tall and skinny old man heard that Zhuowen wasn't from the central continent, his gaze flickered with an indescribable light, and the enthusiasm on his face grew even denser. I was rash. Since Brother Daowon has already won the combat ring, then you can enter the visualization tower now. The tall and skinny old man chuckled. Zhuowen cupped his fists and directly leaped into the visualization tower in midair. The door to the visualization tower was arched, and there was a groove at the center of the door. The shape of this groove just happened to be exactly the same as the command token in his hand. Zhuowen placed the command token into the groove. Instantly, the arched door emitted cracking sounds, and then it opened towards both sides. At the instant Zhuowen stepped foot into the visualization tower, he heard the voice of the tall and skinny old man by his ears. Brother Daowon, the visualization tower is only open for 10 days. Therefore, if you want to look at the visualization diagram, you only have 10 days. I suggest you go directly to the 3rd floor. The strongest visualization diagram of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect is placed there. The strongest visualization diagram of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect, the Demonic Essence Demonic Diagram, is also on the 3rd floor. Zhuowen was stunned, and his gaze became rather strange. This tall and skinny old man was a little too enthusiastic towards him. He had entered the visualization diagram to look at their sex manuals, and he was actually so kind as to remind him. There was something wrong with this scene. However, Zhuowen didn't mind. His gaze landed on the bookshelves piled up in the visualization tower. The manuals on these bookshelves were all kinds of visualization diagrams. Zhuowen casually walked to the side of a nearby bookshelf and casually picked up a manual. This manual was called the Lotus Flower Visualization Diagram. Its level wasn't high, and it was of the same level as the Green Lotus Visualization Diagram that Zhuowen had cultivated back then. However, Zhuowen quickly finished reading this visualization diagram and then continued to deduce it in his mind. In just 15 minutes, he had already comprehended this lotus flower visualization diagram. Moreover, he used the special energy of the Great Word Stone to combine the Ancient Sword visualization diagram and the Green Lotus visualization diagram, fusing them together to create a new visualization diagram. Zhuowen browsed through the manuals one by one and spent 2 days to finish reading all the visualization diagrams on the first floor of the visualization tower. Moreover, he used the ability of the Great Word Stone to finally fuse these visualization diagrams together and create a new visualization diagram. Zhuowen named this visualization diagram the Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram. The Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram was the same as the Primordial Chaos Movement Technique and the Primordial Chaos Soldier Art. They all had the potential to be fused. They could be continuously upgraded by fusing with other visualization diagrams. Zhuowen spent 3 days to finish looking through all the visualization diagrams on the second level. He also integrated all of these visualization diagrams into the Primordial Visualization Diagram. Meanwhile, the Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram had also successfully advanced to the 6th level. Now, as long as he cultivated the Primordial Chaos Visualization Diagram, his spirit would be able to break through and smoothly reach the heaven-crushing 6th transformation stage. When Zhuowen arrived at the 3rd floor, he discovered that there were only 2 visualization diagrams on the 3rd floor. One was the Demonic Essence Demonic Diagram, and the other was the Ultimate Dark Heaven Diagram. Chapter 38:57. The portrait in the Imperial Xiantian diagram was very simple. On the top half of the portrait was an arc that resembled the sky. Under the sky, a blazing yellow light surged. This light seemed to be alive as it kept flashing. It was as if it was going to break through the arc in the sky and completely pierce through it. The only pity was that the Imperial Xiantian diagram was not complete. 1/3 of the Imperial Xiantian diagram was missing. Zhuowen did not know what the missing part of the diagram was. On the other hand, the reason Zhuowen had paid attention to this visualization diagram with a single glance was because he'd sensed a vast and surging impact from it as soon as he laid eyes on it. This impact was far greater than the demonic Qi demonic diagram. Without a doubt, this Imperial Xiantian diagram's grade should be higher than the demonic Qi demonic diagram. However, the Imperial Xiantian diagram was missing a part, so its value might be similar to the demonic Qi demonic diagram. Zhuowen silently studied the Imperial Xiantian diagram before his gaze finally landed on the demonic Qi demonic diagram. The demonic Qi demonic diagram's image could be said to be extremely evil. It was a demon whose entire body was covered in black fog. This demon was very tall, and its body was surging with demonic aura. It was impossible to see its face clearly. The only eye-catching thing should be its demonic eyes that even the demonic aura could not hide. This pair of demonic eyes had 9 layers of pupils. Upon closer inspection, it seemed as if these pupils were rotating together. It was easy to be dazzled if one looked at it for too long. Zhuowen's gaze was serious. He finally knew why the Divine Firmament Soul Sect's previous sect masters had been unable to cultivate this visualization diagram to perfection. The main reason was that this visualization diagram was simply too evil. If one's mind was slightly distracted while cultivating this diagram, it was very easy to be bewitched by this pair of eyes and suffer Qi deviation. Zhuowen guessed that there should be many powerful cultivators in the Divine Firmament Soul Sect who had suffered Qi deviation after cultivating this visualization diagram, greatly damaging their vitality. Zhuowen had also almost been bewitched by this pair of demonic eyes. Fortunately, his mind and soul were extraordinary. Thinking of this, Zhuowen felt a trace of admiration for Qin Ruibois. This person was really talented to be able to cultivate the demonic vitality demonic diagram to great accomplishment in such a short time. Zhuowen glanced at the demonify diagram and the highest Xiantian diagram. Although his comprehension ability had been improved by the highest word stone, it had indeed reached a level that ordinary people could not reach. However, he only had 7 days left in this visualization diagram, and the demonic energy transmutation diagram and the Imperial Xiantian diagram were both extremely profound visualization diagrams. He estimated that with his comprehension ability, he would only need 5 days to fully comprehend the demonic vitality demonic diagram. It would take him at least 6 days to comprehend the Imperial Xiantian diagram. After all, the Imperial Xiantian diagram was of a higher level than the demonic vitality demonic diagram. Furthermore, it was incomplete, so it was naturally more time-consuming. Therefore, he could only choose one of the 2 visualization diagrams. Zhuowen naturally chose the higher-level Imperial Xiantian diagram. Although the diagram was incomplete, he had the primordial stone. He could use the primordial stone to deduce the incomplete parts of the diagram and completely perfect it. Once the Imperial Xiantian diagram was completed, its level would probably far surpass the demonic energy transmutation diagram. It would be a more valuable visualization diagram to cultivate. Zhuowen was a decisive person. Therefore, after making this decision, he immediately sat cross-legged in front of the Imperial Xiantian diagram. He stared at the diagram on it and focused on comprehending it. The highest word stone in his soul surged with a mysterious and distant purple light as Zhuowen comprehended the diagram. It was helping him to comprehend the Imperial Xiantian diagram. Time passed day by day. It was the 9th day since Zhuowen entered the visualization tower. Zhuowen was still sitting in front of the Imperial Xiantian diagram. A dim yellow light flickered between his eyebrows. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes. A light that couldn't be looked at directly flashed across his eyes. The light on his forehead suddenly bloomed and turned into countless yellow light beams. These beams of light swept upward and finally condensed into a yellow pillar of light. It seemed like it was going to soar into the sky and pierce through the dome of heaven. The moment this pillar of light formed, the yellow color immediately turned into a faint purple color. Then, gold surged within the faint purple color. Finally, the purple and gold colors merged together perfectly. Zhuowen's mind moved. The purple-gold pillar of light immediately dissipated into countless light spots and merged into the depths of Zhuowen's eyebrows. Zhuowen slowly stood up. His eyes were filled with excitement. He had completely comprehended the Imperial Xiantian diagram on the 8th day. Of course, he had only comprehended the incomplete diagram of the Imperial Xiantian diagram. As for the complete Imperial Xiantian diagram, it was not very likely that he could fully comprehend it. On the 9th day, he used the Tai word stone to completely merge the Imperial Xiantian diagram with the primordial meditation diagram. Although Zhuowen did not know the exact grade of the Imperial Xiantian diagram, he could feel that the primordial meditation diagram had undergone some kind of transformation after it merged with the Imperial Xiantian diagram. He was sure that the primordial meditation diagram was of a higher grade than the demonic energy demonic diagram. If he could completely deduce and perfect the Imperial Xiantian diagram, the primordial meditation diagram's power would become very terrifying. It would far surpass the demonic energy demonic diagram. Of course, the Imperial Xiantian diagram's grade was too high. If he were to use the Tai word stone to deduce and perfect it, it would probably take a very long time. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry. The primordial meditation diagram had already given him enough surprises. Now that his spirit was cultivating, he did not have to worry at all in the heaven-crushing stage. The primordial meditation diagram could at least allow his spirit to cultivate to the heaven-crushing 9 transformations. At least, before his spirit reached the heaven-crushing 9 transformations, he did not have to search for the diagram anymore. There is still a day left in this visualization tower. I might as well start cultivating the primordial meditation diagram. Zhuowen muttered to himself. aside from the demonic energy demonic diagram. Zhuowen had basically seen all of the diagrams here and merged them into the primordial meditation diagram. It was obviously not very possible for him to completely comprehend the demonic energy demonic diagram in a day. Therefore, Zhuowen did not plan to comprehend the demonic energy demonic diagram anymore. It was better to cultivate the primordial meditation diagram. His spirit had already reached the peak of the heaven-crushing 5 transformations and was on the verge of breaking through at any time. However, he had been suffering from the lack of higher-grade diagrams before, which was why he had stagnated. Chapter 38:58. The person in the lead was an old man with a sage-like demeanor. He wore a green Taoist robe that fluttered even though there was no wind, giving off the feeling of a banished immortal. This person was the Divine Firmament Soul Sect Master, Yangshu. His cultivation was at the early stage of the Divine Domain Transformation stage, an expert on the same level as Sikong Chiyu. The young man standing behind Yangshu was Qin Ruebua, who had lost to Zhuowen. The other 2 old men were the 2 elders of the Divine Firmament Soul Sect who had been standing in front of the mountain gate since the beginning. 5th elder, 6th elder. Are you sure that this kid has 9 void spirit realm experts? The sage-like old man looked at the visualization tower floating in the air. His eyes narrowed as he spoke, somewhat solemnly. Sect Master, I can confirm this matter. This kid's cultivation is indeed at the Void God transformation stage, but the strength he displayed is not inferior to mine at all, especially when he erupted with 9 Void Spirit Realm experts. His strength is probably above mine. If not for my carelessness, no matter how strong he is, he wouldn't be a match for me. Qin Ruebua cupped his fists towards Yangshu, his eyes filled with unwillingness. He had set up the arena in high spirits and challenged the many young geniuses of the middle ground. Even a famous genius like Yang Yanyu had been defeated by him. But what he didn't expect was that he would lose to a mere void god transformation stage ant. This kind of battle record would probably make him the greatest laughingstock of the middle ground in the future. At that time, if the 5th elder had not told him what he guessed, he might have immediately killed this ant. 9 void spirit realm experts. If I'm not wrong, in the Li Yuan main region, only a descendant of a family can cultivate multiple void spirit realm experts at the void god transformation stage and obtain strength that far surpasses void god transformation stage cultivators of the same level. Yangshu's gaze became solemn as he muttered, Sect Master, what family is it that makes you so afraid? Qin Ruebua asked doubtfully. At that time, the 5th elder had only agreed to his voice transmission. He had only said that this person's background was very unusual and that he couldn't casually attack him at the moment. Otherwise, it might cause great trouble. If not for the 5th elder's warning, he would have been so angry that he lost his mind. It's one of the 3 devil clans, the Heavenly Devil Clan. The bloodline of the Heavenly Devil Clan is very special. It comes from the ancient Devil Clan. Their bloodline is much stronger than ours. It is precisely because of the strength of their bloodline that the 3 devil clans are generally much stronger than human cultivators. Only some of the top human geniuses are comparable to the geniuses of the 3 devil clans. As for the descendants of the Heavenly Demon Clan, their most obvious characteristic is that when they reach the empty god rank, they will have at least 2 empty gods. The stronger ones might even have 7 or 8. This person is only at the empty god transformation stage, but he has 9 empty gods. He must be from the Heavenly Demon Clan, and he is no ordinary genius. Yangshu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, 3 devil clans? Qin Ruebua looked puzzled. He knew a little about the situation in the Li Yuan Master District. He knew that the strongest sect in the Li Yuan Master District was the Four Shenzhen. That was a true superpower. However, this was the first time he had heard of the Three Devils clan. It shouldn't be a powerful force. Yangshu glanced at Qin Ruebwa from the corner of his eyes. He could see that Qin Ruebwa did not think much of it. Ruebwa, you're still too young. It's normal that you haven't heard of the Three Devils clan. I can tell you clearly that the Three Devils clan is no weaker than the Four Shenzhen. The experts of the Three Devils clan are even stronger than the Four Shenzhen. Yangshu reminded him. What? So strong? Then why haven't I heard anything about the Three Devils clan? Qin Ruebwa was shocked. That's because the Three Devils clan is not human. In the 100 Outer Regions, the human race is the mainstream. No matter how strong the Three Devils clan is, can they fight against the entire human race in the Liyuan Master District? As the saying goes, those who are not of our race must be killed. The Three Devils clan naturally understands this, so they have been very low-key in the Liyuan Master District. All this time, they have been living peacefully with the other human forces in the Liyuan Master District. This is also why you haven't heard of the Three Devils clan, Yangshu explained patiently. Only then did Qin Ruebwa reveal a relieved expression. He did not expect the three demon clans to be so powerful. If that fellow was really from the three demon clans and something happened to him, the Divine Firmament Soul Sect would not be able to bear the consequences. Their Divine Firmament Soul Sect was one of the top 10 sects in Middle Ground, but in the Liyuan Master District, it could only be considered below average. It could not be compared to the Three Devils clan, which was comparable to the Four Shenzhen. Oh! Yangshu suddenly raised his head and looked at the visualization tower in the sky with a surprised expression. Sect Master, what's wrong? The fifth elder and sixth elder saw Yangshu's strange expression and asked in confusion. Look, Yangshu pointed at the visualization tower. The two elders and Qin Ruebwa's group looked in the direction Yangshu had pointed. To their surprise, they discovered that the visualization tower was trembling violently. Then, a terrifying violet gold torrent surged out of the visualization tower and rushed into the sky. What a powerful divine spirit. That youth called Tao, Wen's divine spirit, has already broken through. The fifth elder and sixth elder were shocked as they looked at the purple gold torrent in disbelief. Such a large purple gold torrent was formed by the divine spirit. It was so huge that it was simply inconceivable. Could it be that his divine spirit has reached the heaven-crushing seventh transformation? Qin Ruebwa was the most surprised, and the unwillingness in his eyes gradually faded. If Zhuowen's divine spirit was really so powerful, even if he used the demonic Qi demonic diagram's divine spirit, it would be far inferior to this divine spirit. He knew that even if he competed with this youth again, he would still not be this youth's match if he did not underestimate his opponent. No, his divine spirit has just broken through to the heaven-crushing sixth transformation, but his divine spirit is too powerful. It far surpasses the divine spirit of an ordinary heaven-crushing sixth transformation cultivator. As expected of the Three Devils clan's prodigy, he has only been in the visualization tower for 10 days, and he can actually achieve enlightenment and break through to the heaven-crushing sixth transformation. Yangshu's eyes revealed a trace of admiration as he muttered in a low voice. Qin Ruebwa, on the other hand, was really shocked. Such powerful divine spirit. And he had actually just broken through to the divine spirit sixth transformation? Could this be a joke? His divine spirit had already reached the peak of the heaven-crushing sixth transformation, but compared to this divine spirit torrent, it was still far inferior. He had thought that Tao Wen's divine spirit had broken through to the heaven-crushing seventh transformation. Of course, he naturally would not doubt He Yangshu's judgment. After all, the latter was the divine firmament soul sect's strongest cultivator, and his judgment was much more experienced than his. This time, Qin Ruebua could be considered to have wholeheartedly accepted his loss. Qin Ruebua naturally felt that he was no match for the three Devil's Clan's prodigy. Thus, losing to such a prodigy was not considered embarrassing. The purple gold torrent gradually extinguished and finally disappeared. Then, the doors of the visualization tower slowly opened, and a slender figure walked out from within. Let's go. Let's go pay our respects to this young master. Chapter 38:59. Zhuowen walked out of the visualization tower's door, his eyes flashing with excitement. He didn't expect that his soul would actually break through so quickly, only using less than half a day. He knew that all of this was thanks to the primordial chaos visualization diagram. This was a visualization diagram that he had created by using the primordial chaos stone and fusing various visualization diagrams. It was the most suitable visualization diagram for him. He only needed to cultivate, and the speed of his breakthrough was so fast that even he was a little surprised. Although he still had half a day in the visualization tower, Zhuowen didn't stay any longer. Inside the visualization tower, apart from the demonic origin transmutation diagram, Zhuowen had basically comprehended most of the visualization diagrams. There was no use in staying any longer. Zhuowen suddenly noticed that four figures were flying over from below the visualization tower. The person in the lead was an old man in green robes with a sage-like demeanor. The invisible aura emitted by this old man was extremely vast, causing Zhuowen's pupils to involuntarily constrict as he looked at this old man with fear. If Zhuowen wasn't wrong, this old man's aura was very powerful, not inferior to Sikong Chiyu at all. This old man should also be an early-stage God domain transformation expert, very likely the divine firmament soul sect master. As for the three people behind the old man, Zhuowen wasn't unfamiliar with them. They were Qin Ruebua and the two divine firmament soul sect elders presiding over the arena. Zhuowen also noticed in surprise that Qin Ruebua, who originally had an unfriendly expression towards him, didn't have any enmity towards him at this moment. Instead, he discovered that Qin Ruebua's gaze was filled with passion and admiration. This made Zhuowen somewhat confused. He remembered that after Qin Ruebua was persuaded by the two elders, his gaze was still very terrifying when he looked at him, as if he wanted nothing more than to eat him. Now that they hadn't seen each other for 10 days, wasn't this change a little too big? Young friend Daowen, I'm the divine firmament soul sect master. He Yangshu, I wonder what you think of our divine firmament soul sect's visualization tower. He Yangshu revealed a warm smile. Zhuowen nodded inwardly. It seemed that his guess was right. This green-robed old man was indeed the divine firmament soul sect master. However, this was the first time they were meeting, right? Why was he so kind and smiling? Moreover, Zhuowen didn't think that a mere junior like him would be able to make the divine firmament soul sect master come personally to meet him. Could it be because I defeated Qin Ruebua, so he wanted to meet him? But He Yangshu's attitude towards him really made Zhuowen somewhat at a loss. Also, the attitude of Qin Ruebua and the other two who followed, He Yangshu was a little too gentle. I beat up the strongest prodigy of your divine firmament soul sect and made him lose face in front of everyone. Don't you hold a grudge against me at all? This was clearly not playing by the rules. Zhuowen complained in his heart, but he didn't dare to be negligent in front of He Yangshu. He cupped his fists and said, the divine firmament soul sect is indeed the #1 sect in middle ground for cultivating the soul. The manuals in the visualization tower have benefited me Greatly. The smile on He Yangshu's face became even more warm. It's good that you're satisfied with the visualization tower. Are you interested in coming to our Divine Firmament Soul sect as a guest? Let me do my duty as a host. Zhuowen was stunned. He carefully sized up He Yangshu. He could tell that the latter's words didn't seem to be false. He really wanted to invite him to the Divine Firmament Soul sect as a guest. Zhuowen hesitated for a moment before nodding. Since sect master, he is so kind, I can't refuse. Zhuowen thought for a moment. Hanwu Shengzhen's entrance trial was nearing. This Divine Firmament Soul sect was one of the top 10 factions in Middle Ground. They probably had a more detailed understanding of Hanwu Shengzhen's entrance trial. Since He Yangshu invited him as a guest, perhaps he could ask He Yangshu about Hanwu Shengzhen. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, He Yangshu's smile became even brighter. Under He Yangshu's lead, the 5 of them entered the Divine Firmament Soul sect and walked toward the main palace in the mountain range. During this time, Qin Ruibwa intentionally or unintentionally chatted with Zhuowen. The former even occasionally raised some questions about the cultivation of the soul. Zhuowen was very surprised by Qin Ruibwa's warm attitude. This youth, who had been full of evil in the beginning, actually had such a side to him. Zhuowen was not used to it. However, Zhuowen answered all of Qin Ruibwa's questions about the soul. Zhuowen's soul was improved on the foundation of the primordial stone, so his comprehension was very high. His understanding of the soul was something that even a divine domain transformation expert like He Yangshu might not be able to compare with. Naturally, Zhuowen had no difficulty answering Qin Ruibwa's questions. When Qin Ruibwa saw that Zhuowen was able to answer so fluently, and that every answer was able to enlighten him, he felt even more admiration for Zhuowen. It seemed that the sect master was right. This person was definitely a genius of the Heavenly Demon clan. Only a genius from a super powerful force could have such astonishing comprehension ability and such a deep understanding of the soul. While Zhuowen and Qin Ruibwa were asking and answering questions, He Yangshu was listening at the side. However, the more he listened, the more shocked he became. He could easily answer Qin Ruibwa's questions, but he was shocked that Zhuowen's answers were not the same as his. However, after careful consideration, He Yangshu discovered that Zhuowen's answer was even more brilliant than the one he had thought of. He Yangshu looked deeply at Zhuowen. He was now even more certain that this Daowen was definitely a genius of the Heavenly Demon clan. Such terrifying comprehension ability and understanding of the soul were unparalleled in the younger generation of Middle Ground. Only the geniuses of the real superforces in the Li Yuan main region could achieve this. Daowen, please take a seat. He Yangshu sat on the main seat and gestured for Zhuowen to sit on the secondary seat beside him. The secondary seat was second only to the main seat in the main hall. It was usually the seat of the Divine Firmament Soul sect's vice sect master. He Yangshu allowed Zhuowen to sit in this seat, which showed how much importance he attached to Zhuowen. Zhuowen did not act pretentious and directly sat on it. Qin Ruibwa and the 2 elders sat on the side. Daowen, I heard from the 5th elder that you are not from Middle Ground. He Yangshu asked with a smile. Zhuowen nodded and did not say anything else. The expression on He Yangshu's face became more and more certain. Then you must be from the Li Yuan main region. It's impossible for a peerless genius like you to appear in the central continent. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of understanding. He finally knew why He Yangshu and the others were so enthusiastic about him. It turned out that these guys had mistaken him for a genius from a major force in the Li Yuan main region.